I call the March 16th, 2015 Contractor State License Board meeting in order. I'm Dave Diaz, Chair. I'm going to ask Augie Beltran to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kevin Albanese.
Here.
Augie Beltran.
Here.
Linda Clifford.
Here.
David Diaz.
I'm here.
Susan Gonzalez.
Here.
Joan Hancock. Here. Pastor Herrera.
Here.
Bob Lamb. Ed Lane.
Here.
Frank Shetter.
Here.
Paul Shafino.
Here.
Johnny Simpson.
Here.
Nancy Springer.
Here.
Bob Lamb has been excused. I'm going to ask, first of all, I'm going to introduce a couple people, then I'll ask the rest of them to introduce themselves. Johnny Simpson. He's a new board member. So can you please tell us about yourself a little bit?
I'm Johnny Simpson. I'm a 37-year member of the IBEW. I'm the business manager, financial secretary of San Diego and Madero Counties IBEW. I also am president of building trades in San Diego. I also vice president of San Diego Housing Works, which is a low-income housing group. We run about 500 units in National City in San Diego. I also sit on the Labor Council. I volunteer a lot of time to what's called Rebuilding Together, which is a charity for low-income seniors, all of that, so make their homes safe and have one for anything we need fixed. 100 electricians per year that volunteer for that.
Really quick, I think you said IBEW. Some people might not know what that is. So.
International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You ready for a lot of hours?
I am.
That's what we want to hear. Excuse me for a second. We have a new attorney, Christy Shields. I almost wanted to say Shields, but that's not it.
Shields.
Is an attorney, 3 with the Department of Consumer Affairs, who has worked with the DCA since March 2000. She has represented the following agencies within the DCA: Bureau of Private Post-Secondary and Vocational Education, Board of Behavioral Sciences, California State Board of Pharmacy, Dental Board of California, Bureau of Automotive Repair, Bureau of Electronic and Appliance Repair, Bureau of Home Furnishing and Thermal Installation, the Cemetery and Funeral Board, the California Board of Accountancy, the Physician Assistant Board, the State Board of Chiropractic Examiners. Is there anyone you haven't prior to coming to the DCA, she worked in the private sector as a corporate counsel for both large national and small local insurance companies specializing in the health insurance line of business. She also worked as a litigator in the private sector, practicing in the areas of construction, defect, environmental law, land use planning, probate, bankruptcy, family law, and criminal defense. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to ask the board members, or actually everybody else, to introduce themselves. Members of the public, just to let you know, this is voluntary. The staff and board, no, you have to. So, we'll start with Aaron.
Aaron Eckert, Assistant to the Registrar.
Brian. Oh. Frank Shadow, board member.
Nancy Springer, board member.
Rick Lopes, Chief of Public Affairs. Pastor Herrera, board member.
Laura Zuniga, Chief of Legislation.
Joan Hancock, board member.
Ed Lang, board member.
Dave Smith, board member.
Cindy Christensen, registrar.
Augie Beltran, board member.
Linda Clifford, board member.
Karen Robinson, Chief of Licensing.
Paul Shapiro, board member.
Susan Gregzella, board member.
Kevin Albanese, board member. David Foe, Chief of Enforcement.
Christy Schultz, attorney for the board.
Kurt Hepler, Supervising Attorney, Consumer Affairs.
Cindy Kanemoto, Chief Information Officer for the board.
Thank you.
Keith Kuhn, IT.
Brian. With the hat on.
Chevy Demiri.
Next side over, please.
Tony Rossetti, Industry Observer.
Linda Hoffman, licensed consultant.
Eric Crandall, Cal State Contractors License Service.
I'm Phil Vermeulen.
Rick Pierce, Basic Crafts.
Thank you very much. My remarks. I just want to, this is Cindy's first board meeting as registrar. I guess everybody knows Cindy. So I just want to let you know I've been chair since July, I guess, last year. And then first Steve was the registrar when I became chair, and now Cindy, she took over January 1st with me. And she's done a great job. And we've been to the different meetings, the different, enforcement meetings, legislators. She does a great job, works with the staff great. And I don't think we've skipped a beat since Steve's left, and I hope he's not watching. But she's doing an outstanding job. So that's my comment. So I'm going to ask the other board members if they have any other comments. No? Okay. I'm going to ask Cindy to discuss the method of voting.
Well, first, thanks for the very kind words, Dave. I hope too many beats have not been skipped. I think they have. I feel like things are starting to slip between the cracks, and hopefully I'll get the new chief deputy registrar in place within a month or so. But effective January 1st, the Administrative Procedures Act was amended so that we have to do a new method of voting during it's actually the Open Meetings Act, I'm sorry. Right. So basically there's a new method of voting. Instead of just calling for a vote and everybody says aye, we have to record each person's vote. So what we tried at the committee meetings was just having a show of hands. All those in favor, just show your hands. It seemed to be very, very expeditious. Otherwise, the alternative was to do a roll call vote. So we'll see how it goes, but just so that you know, when David calls for a vote or any of the committee chairs, that's what we'll be doing from here on out. Any questions?
Thank you, Cindy. Okay. Public comment. For those items on the agenda, as well as items not on the agenda, the board cannot take any action on items not on the agenda. Public may comment during this time or as an agenda item comes up. We will ask for public comment prior to taking action on any item. If we forget to ask for public comment, I usually get kicked. The public can raise their hand and will be recognized. We may limit public comment to 5 minutes per individual. Are there any individuals that wish to address the board at this time? Please come on up. That's one thing I don't want to see it back.
Okay. How you doing?
For about 2.
Can you?
right.
Can you state your name, please, again?
Okay, Javid Amiri.
Just give me 1 sec.
Leave it alone?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
Can you say your name again, please?
Javid Amiri.
Okay.
Okay, for about 2 years and 8 months, I've been attempting to get a general contractor's license with no avail. I've gone through every bureau. I've had application number after application number. And I had the work experience passed with the first application number. I contacted the state when they asked me to, and they said, no, you missed the date. We're going to give you another application number. I attempted to do everything they asked me to do. I passed the test November 11th, and now they're holding me back on a work experience. And what they're asking for is 40% of 10 years of experience, and the 13 different contractors, licensed contractors I spoke to, are doing 8 to 6%. So what they're asking for is just impossible.
8 to 6% of what are these other people doing?
I'm sorry, there cannot be discussion on this item because it's not on the agenda. So I would recommend that this individual speak with registrar or staff if they have any issues that need to be resolved regarding their application.
We can ask questions.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can talk to Karen after the meeting or now. You want to do it now? Okay. Okay. And she can, she's chief of licensing.
So hang on just a second.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you. Any other members of the public want to address the board? Thank you. Okay.
One comment. When a member of the public comes up and basically has an issue, is the attorney advising us that we can't have a discussion about that issue?
If it's not on the agenda.
Well, how do we ever find out the facts about what's going on with the public question?
Yeah, it's a little, again, Kurt Epper, supervising attorney, it's a little bit different posture. When essentially the board is talking about something in play, one of its licensing or disciplinary functions, theoretically, you don't want the decision makers involved at the lower level while they're still in play. The Contractors Board has a kind of a unique structure in that the board does not itself, the members do not get involved too much in the disciplinary licensing process, but there's always that potentiality that they could. So whenever a licensee or a respondent or an applicant has an issue, generally speaking, so that this body does not be so-called tainted by any information that it would not have, we ask that that person talk to the appropriate administrative personnel within the board itself, thereby taking it out of the realm of the board members and into the administrative arena. That's the difference.
And how do we determine whether administrative policies are being followed, the ones that we abide by?
Yeah.
Isn't that part of our job?
Yeah, it would be my hope, Ms. Hancock, that at the conclusion of...
I'm not talking about specifics,
right.
Facts to his particular case.
Right.
I'm talking about how his case is working its way up the food chain. That's what I'm asking.
Through the chair?
I'm sorry?
I was just through the chair. Maybe I can put it into non-legalese. So if it's not in the agenda, we can't talk about it.
Right.
And we're the ultimate appeal. So the first thing you do is you kick the ball back to staff. Staff tries to work with the individual at the local level, and then as he works his way through the process, he would become agendized at some point if he needed to come in front of the board or a committee.
Right.
All right?
Correct.
City Council 101.
Well done.
So what is the purpose of public comment?
By law, we have to allow the public to come and vent on any issue they would like to vent on, because that's their right as members of the public. But because you are required to give the public advance notice about what you're going to talk about, and talking about something that's not on the agenda would deprive the public of the opportunity to participate because they didn't have advance notice of it, you are precluded, but they are not. Does that make sense?
This period of public comment is for items that aren't on the agenda.
Right, so it's to allow them to come and vent on any discussion or talk about anything that's bothering them that's within your jurisdiction. It's to allow them
And
that
so you're
public
saying
platform to do that.
Particular issues, that particular issue is not within our jurisdiction, is all you're saying.
I'm not saying it's not within your jurisdiction. I'm saying that you're not allowed to talk about anything that's not on the agenda because it deprives the public of being able to collectively come and hear about and talk about it. What you're allowed to do is agendize it for a future meeting if you have no other issues regarding, the resolution of the complaint or whatever. So you're allowed to decide whether to put it on a future agenda. So if it is something that's not going to implicate any other policy problem, like Kurt had just mentioned, you can decide at this meeting to put it on a future agenda item, and that way people would have advance notice that you're going to talk about it. You can decide whether they want to appear at the meeting and discuss it.
Kevin?
I'm aware that we can't take action on any item, but since my brief time on the board, we've engaged in discourse, not necessarily about particular circumstances, but overall policy issues and overriding policy issues with speakers. We're being told that the board can't say anything during public comment?
No, you can't. It was the law about, 5 or 6 years ago that you could discuss it, and they changed it to require you not to discuss or take action on. So for a long time, under the Open Meeting Act, you could discuss it, even if it wasn't on the agenda, but now you can't even discuss an item that's not properly noticed.
Can you actually ask for a clarification of
Sure.
the comments that the presenter has made?
Well, you can ask for clarification for the purpose of agendizing it for a future agenda, but you can't actually talk about the issue with that person. So I know it seems a little harsh for me to jump in, but because there are civil and criminal penalties for violating the Open Meeting Act, I'm here to try to protect your interests in that regard.
Do we, specific to, whatever Bagley-Keene open meeting section that you're talking about, would you mind sending all of us that site? And you don't have to do it now?
It's on the agenda, actually. I put the code sections on the agenda just because this does come up.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's on item C. It says, note, individuals may appear before the CSLB, discuss items not on the agenda. However, the board can neither discuss nor take official action on these items at the time of the same meeting. And those are the code sections that apply.
Real quick, can we go through the chair because we have other people trying to go through here and it's going out of order a little bit.
Okay.
Paul?
So what we're struggling with is a change of pattern as a board because we have handled this a bit differently. What would help me in this instance is if we just flow through this example real quick of what we just had, where for the purposes of agenda, of setting an agenda, we could inquire of this gentleman or ask questions to understand what his issue is. We could inquire about what happened and what the process was as we try to filter through as a board whether or not this is something we want to put on the agenda. Is that fair?
Kurt.
Mr. President, I don't know which attorney has the more dulcet tones, me or Christie. So I'll take a shot at this.
Thank you.
Like I said, I don't want to revisit the past. The issue, I differ from my colleague just in a slight sense, and the issue for me is really that with virtually every board within Consumer Affairs, the people sitting around this table, the board members themselves, are the decision-making body. They're the policy organs of the board. And so there's a danger, although the Contractors Board is slightly different than most structures, there's a danger when you get down to the individualized decision-making, because if in fact there would ultimately be, and I don't know this gentleman's case either, where you would have to deny licensure, for example, we would go to a statement of issues, it would enter the administrative process. So conceivably then this board could set and decide whether or not this gentleman deserves a license. You could potentially now be contaminated or tainted by any discussion that might have flowed here. So it's both a function of it's not truly on the agenda, but a greater concern in my mind is the simple fact that you would, as the decision makers, would be confined to the record, whatever the administrative documents that go around with it, and not the individual stuff, so that you could not be tainted and still render a good decision. So that's why I jumped in a little bit later than my colleague did and said, because I think it was a little slightly bit different. For example, let me just ramble on for a second. If a person came up here and said, my administrative disciplinary case is going awry, the board is saying that I should be this or that or the other thing, we would stop conversation as well and direct them to talk to Mr. Fote or Ms. Delp if she were here, because that's administrative disciplinary process in play. This is a licensing matter. It's the other side of the fence, but it's still an administrative decision. So that's why we don't talk about it here, because ultimately, if it came to where this board had to make a decision on this, then you would all be tainted and we'd have to find somebody else to make the decision.
It's sort of like if you allow the jury to see evidence or read newspapers about a case before they sit and actually deliberate on the decision, they would be disqualified from deciding the matter because they had outside information before the case actually came before them. So you're kind of the jury in your cases, the ultimate jury, and because you're the ultimate jury, when someone has a pending licensing matter or a pending enforcement matter, we usually recommend strongly that you don't take any information outside of the record before the case is final, or before you as a final decision.
Chair?
Go for it.
Okay. Agenda item B, Chair's introductory remarks and board member comments. Could you read the second paragraph?
What second paragraph?
Agenda item B.
Yes. I don't see.
It looks like this.
I know, and that's wrong, unfortunately. That was not provided to me before the meeting.
Okay, I'll read it. It says, board members may comment on issues not on the agenda. They may not debate or vote on issues not included on the agenda notice. So
right,
what is, I guess, interpretation of comment is what we're looking for.
Right. The law was changed so that people cannot discuss. So that is incorrect. Correct.
Chair?
Yes, Augie.
With respect, with all the questions going around, we need to move the meeting, and I would ask that if you have any questions, the greatest place to go is the DCA class. They'll teach you everything you need to know.
Another option would be to place a training. I could do a training for the board at another board meeting where you could ask me all the questions you'd like about what can be placed on an agenda and what can be discussed.
Can we discuss that now?
Sure, you can decide whether you want to put it on an agenda.
Okay, well, any other comments? Let's move forward. Okay, review and approval of the board meeting minutes. Do any board members have any additional or any comments on the 2011, December 11th, 2014 minutes?
Motion to approve December 11th and December 16th minutes.
Approve. Second.
I know. Does any member of the public have any comment on this item? All in favor? Oh, we got to raise our hands, that's right. Approved. Oh, anybody, those are all ayes. Anybody not for, don't approve the minutes? No, this is weird. Okay, so it was, pardon me?
16.
One abstain. Any abstentions? No. Yeah, roll. You want to do a roll call from now on? Well, we're going to do a roll call vote from now. Okay. Do any board members have any additional comments regarding the December 16, 2014 minutes? Does any member of the public have any comments on this item? Aaron, do you want to do a roll call vote?
Sure. Kevin Albanese. Aye. Augie Beltran. Aye. Linda Clifford.
Aye.
David Diaz.
Aye.
Susan Granzella. Joan Hancock. Aye. Pastor Herrera.
Aye.
Bob Lamb. Ed Lang.
Aye.
Frank Shetter.
Aye.
Paul Shafino.
Aye.
Johnny Simpson.
Aye.
Nancy Springer.
Aye.
Actually, I don't even know if it ever got moved, did it?
It did.
Okay, it did. Okay. appointment of nominations committee, that's me. I have appointed Bob Lamb and Joan Hancock as the nominations committee for the upcoming board meeting in June, which will be in Fairfield, California. Does any of the other board members have an objection to that? Thank you. Board staff will contact each board member and see who's interested in serving as an officer. Any questions? Thank you. Enforcement, David Foat. Oh, he's over there.
Thank you, Chair Diaz. On page 1 of agenda item F1, we have the Enforcement Committee meeting minutes. We had an Enforcement Committee meeting in Sacramento on February the 20th. Enforcement Chair Bob Lamb was able to recognize law enforcement partners that have provided backup at our stings. They were from Amador and Yolo County. Also, we had a couple of employees from other state agencies that have done a great job in being available to our staff to investigate the cash pay, lack of tax withholding, and workers' comp violations. We also discussed an update. We provided an update on our Greenworks tub investigation, in which the father and daughter are facing over 60 felony counts. We talked about our partnering with other state agencies, specifically the Labor Enforcement Task Force, in a pilot program they'd put in place to determine if commercial inspections were more beneficial than residential. I'm pleased to report that they've now concluded that pilot, and they understand that there are more violations in residential than commercial. And then finally, we showed a series of slides on opportunities to partner with building departments. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later in the enforcement update. But I would ask for a motion to approve the February 20th Enforcement Committee meeting minutes.
Okay, Kevin Albanese.
Aye.
Augie Beltran.
Aye.
Linda Clifford.
Aye.
David Diaz.
Aye.
Susan Granzella. Joan Hancock. Pastor Herrera.
Aye.
Ed Lang.
Aye.
Frank Shetter. Paul Shafino. Johnny Simpson.
Aye.
Nancy Springer. All right.
Does any member of the public have any comment? Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the enforcement program update. That's F2 in your packet. Just very quickly, just want to update you on our complaint handling statistics. You'll see at the bottom of the first page that we've been able to return to injured consumers, whether they be property owners or contractors, more than $7 million. We're very proud of that achievement. On page 2, we have new line charts that we've developed to track our compliance with board objectives as it relates to our complaint handling. If you turn to page 4, I wanted to highlight our legal action case totals. And what you'll see for the first 7 months of this fiscal year is that staff have completed over 1,000, actually over 1,100 legal actions. But what really stands out is that 317 of those legal actions were referred to DAs. Now this chart and that information is specific to consumer filed complaints. And this is in direct response to the board objective a few years ago to work more closely with DAs to address the consumer harm, not just the unlicensed practice, but the diversion of funds, the elder abuse, and other violations that have occurred. And our peace officers have played a part in achieving those numbers. On page 5, we have new statistical charts for our proactive enforcement. For the investigative center enforcement reps, their goal is to close 10 complaints per month. For our fraud, or I should say our SWIFT, our proactive that do the stings, they run the leads, and they conduct sweeps, their goal is to close 13 cases a month. And they have also achieved very impressive legal action numbers. For the first 7 months, they concluded 887 criminal investigations and referred 417 of those to DAs. Those are mainly for unlicensed, against unlicensed contractors and against contractors that don't have workers' comp. But that's almost 50% of their legal actions being referred to DAs.
Dave, I want to say that's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. I honestly don't know if there's another state agency that can come anywhere close to those type of numbers for 7 months. We're talking well over 2,000 criminal cases referred to DAs. On page 7, just wanted to provide you some highlights at our intake mediation centers. We have one Norwalk, one Sacramento. They continue to focus on helping parties recover the loss that occurred during the construction activity, but also to educate contractors so they don't reoffend. And we've got some highlights there where we were able to return over $16,000 to a consumer that had a floor that, I guess, it buckled in the top one, and the bottom highlight, the pool contractor didn't get a permit, didn't do it right, and $27,000 was returned to that property owner. On page 8, in the middle of the page, we have a highlight relating to surveillance, something that our peace officers can do. We are very careful with that because they are unarmed, but it's a good example of what we're doing with the LA City Attorney in our continuing partnering with them to identify contractors that, in this case, are unlicensed, they're targeting consumers, they're taking money, performing very little work, and also fraudulently using somebody else's license. And what we're able to do with this case is we achieved a 90-day sentence, but also $106,000 in restitution and return to the injured party. At the bottom of the page, it's a very interesting elder abuse case. It's quite long. I just want to point out a couple of things. It's titled Licensee Targeted Elder, Please No Contest. It's an update. But what's interesting about this highlight is it includes a lot of what we're looking at today. And one is the lending fraud that's occurring. We have contractors that are going out, they're predatory, they're selling, they're obtaining mortgages, or they're obtaining money for elderly, typically, that can't afford to make the payment. In this case, this was a painting job for $12,000. It quickly expanded into $227,000 worth of work. The property owner couldn't afford it, so the contractor, or I should say the salesperson in this case, was able to get a reverse mortgage on the property. Ultimately, he was arrested at the bank, but was released. We had to do a considerable more investigation before the DA was willing to file. But it also includes a qualifier on the license that was not involved. So once again, you've got an RMO that's not active, not minding the store, you got a salesperson defrauding somebody. The outcome of this case was $41,000 in restitution has been paid and 30 days in county jail, not nearly what we would hope to achieve in these cases because we believe it's very egregious. We'll talk about that a little bit more with the service and repair update. And with that, we'll move on to the fraud, our statewide investigative fraud team update. On page 13, I wanted to talk about two highlights that I thought were very interesting. And the first one is we're continuing to work with DAs. When we talk about how we conduct our sting operations, I just want to quickly provide you a little background. If we want to conduct a sting, the first thing we do is we approach a DA and ask them if they're willing to prosecute the cases. What happens as a sting is you're given a notice to appear based upon a misdemeanor violation, so you've got to make sure you have that relationship in play. We also need backup. We're going to want to have 3 armed peace officers at our stings because we're targeting individuals. Many of them have warrants, or others, we have no idea who they are. Quite frankly, we're going to Craigslist or some type of advertising where you don't know who's going to come out to your sting, so we need 3 armed officers. And the district attorney's office will generally provide 1 or 2 armed officers. Generally, they can't do 3, which is why we've got to find a peace officer somewhere else. I know Rick Lopes is going to talk a little bit about the blitz that was conducted last week. What really stood out to me on the blitz is that at all 7 of those locations, we had DA investigators present. But we also had other partners. We had partners from the CHP. We had partners from the Department of Insurance. We had Division of Investigation. We're looking to get our partners anywhere we can to achieve our goals. And on page 13, what stood out here is the Santa Barbara DA. They understand that the license is important to protect consumers, and we did target somebody during the blitz in November, and the DA's office took the position that person should never get a license, and you know what? I believe that to be correct. And they received 180 days or 6 months in jail, this guy did, for being a repeat offender. On the bottom of page 13, it's a partner. I wanted to highlight a partnership we put in place with the building official in Compton. The building official's name is Paige Vaughn. The board has worked with Paige for well over 10 years. We got together with Paige to say, what can we do to help you? What can you do to help us? And we've entered into an agreement with the city of Compton where once a month we go out, we conduct a sting operation with his code enforcement. And Paige is able to secure police backup for the stings. He's able to get us a sting site. He's able to help us obtain good leads. He's getting these leads through suspect owner-builder permits. So not only are we doing a sting a month, we're also running one lead where we're going out and looking at active job sites where you have homeowners that have likely been duped by somebody who's not licensed or and for other reasons should not be working under an owner-builder permit. And we're working with Paige Vaughn and his code enforcement officers to address those violations, and we're going to be providing quarterly reports on our success. Okay, moving on to page 16, just a quick update on our training. Last week, we had a meeting. Our two main instructors are Mike Franklin, Deputy Attorney General, and Doug Galbraith. I believe most of you have met the two of them. They do a phenomenal job. But we got together to discuss additional or more advanced training, and what we put in place is we're going to be conducting training for our staff on service and repair investigations, specifically the need to provide a 3-day cooling off period for your customer. People are going out, they're going out on a service and repair call, and then it's mushrooming into something else. Our staff needs to know how to investigate those, needs to know how to identify the predatory behavior. Also, for Pastor Herrera, his suggestion that the staff be provided training on construction terminology. We're going to be bringing in construction experts to talk about, the basics to the construction that we do regulate. So we're very excited about that. And then finally, diversion of funds, recognizing when you've got a situation where money was diverted for an unintended purpose and how we can put those criminal cases together. We've had a lot of success in the past. We believe we can build upon that success. And that would conclude the enforcement update. Happy to answer any questions.
Pastor.
Yeah. Thank you for your great report, Chief Fold. I just had a question, since we're going to be talking about in the legislative package on the salespersons. On the example that you provided on page 8 and 9 concerning the egregious behavior of the salesperson, as part of the sentencing is that person prohibited from ever applying for another sales person license through the contractors?
If I understand the question correctly, you're talking about the requirement to be a home improvement salesperson when you're out negotiating or executing a contract for home improvement.
That's right. But now in this case here that you cited to us, the perpetrator was a salesperson, right? I mean, he's the one that took the elderly person to the bank and all that stuff. Now, as part of the sentencing that that this person received, is he or she also prohibited from actually applying for another sales license in the future?
No, it's a very good point. I'd like to elaborate a little bit on that. It's one of when we talk about the service and repair training, it's going to include training on the HIS or Home Improvement Salesperson registration. And you can revoke that registration. We could take an administrative action to take it away. And we do flag these people. Because what you see is when someone's revoked, it's not uncommon that they'll surface as a home improvement salesperson or somebody else engaging in the same type of behavior that got them revoked to begin with. Now, what you need to do with those type of cases, though, to prove that the owner of the business is culpable, administratively, the owner of the business is always responsible for the salesperson. But for a criminal case, we'll generally need to serve a search warrant. We're going to need to look at the computer forensics. We're going to need to show there was some training that encouraged this behavior, and then you can get the case filed criminally against the business owner.
Thank you. Any members of the public? Oh.
With the HIS, they're going through the criminal background as well as licensees, correct?
Correct, yes.
So they would be picked up and flagged if they had a construction conviction?
Absolutely. We'd see that on the criminal background search, and as David mentioned, they'll flag them on our system, and the staff will refer it over to enforcement.
Thank you.
I was just concerned because the responsible person here is the owner, the contractor, right? Because the HIS works for the contractor. I mean, because the contractor is held liable also, right? In this case?
Well, administratively, 100% of the time. Criminally, you're going to need to show that the owner of the business put some training in place. It wasn't just a rogue employee. And so we've got a lot of cases going on right now where we're trying to prove that up.
Any other comments from the board? Comments from the
Dave,
Frank?
I had one. When the salesperson took this person to the bank, to get a loan. Would that be something would be prohibited for him to do? Is that?
It's not something that they would be prohibited to do, but it's an identifier for trained bank personnel that it can be very suspicious. And it's something that we work with Adult Protective Services quite regularly, and that's one of the identifiers of potential elder abuse, where they're almost in control of the situation. They want to drive the elderly victim to the bank instead of having a family member do it, who might say, you know what, maybe this isn't such a good idea.
Well, I was just thinking if they were allowed to go through the paperwork and help this person apply, maybe that's something we want to restrict them from doing.
It's something we can look at.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Any other board member with a comment? Public? Anybody from the public have a comment? Thank you.
Okay, next. Whoops, sorry about that. Agenda item F3, an update on our Predatory Service and Repair Task Force. April 24th, the board directed staff to create a task force, and we've been very active in identifying predatory contractors, specifically, and I'm just going to use this as a general name. We call it indoor air, but it's actually this investigation is comprised of numerous corporate entities that are operating unlicensed. I've never seen anything quite like it. They don't have licenses, they don't pretend to have a license, but they're operating statewide, and they're causing a tremendous amount of harm to consumers. And if you look at page 2, got an update on Yar Zilberman. He was one of the first that was investigated, and he's pled out to 2 years in state prison. That's great news. Problem is, they're still operating. So Yair's pled out. Eldad has done 8 months in jail. He can't get out. He's still held on $1 million bail, but he's not been sentenced yet, so we'll be keeping our eye on him. But I want to provide you just some quick highlights as to what the enforcement staff are currently investigating. We've got this 84-year-old property owner that was contacted for just the, well, he wanted, I guess, a water heater replacement or something, and 84-year-old woman wanted a water replacement, but she spent over $600,000 to date. Very, very devastating case. The inspection on that one, it's relatively new, is occurring today up in Santa Clara County. We have an expert going out to evaluate what was actually done. I've looked at the contract and what was allegedly performed, and quite frankly, it's minimal. At the bottom of the page, $31,000 paid, no work performed. And we have one here in LA that was $170,000 for allegedly coming out and cleaning the ducts, and they were going to replace the ducts. We don't believe any duct work was actually replaced, $170,000 paid. Where we're at with this, though, is we've done a lot of work, we've served warrants, we've got a lot of information, we've done a tremendous amount of auditing, and we have a meeting this afternoon. We, being the Special Investigation Unit Supervisor John Bruce, and I are meeting with the LADA on this case, and hopefully we're going to get some clear direction on where we can go with it. Just very concerned that it's continuing, and we need to do everything we can to stop it immediately. On the bottom of page 3, you've previously heard about the ambassador program. This is something that our chair, David Diaz, was involved in. And kind of the kickoff of it was, I believe, in Santa Clara, and we followed it up, I think, in Fairfield. And we're really excited about it because it's one of the first times where we can provide documents or solicitation material to our licensees that they can use at the point of sale. And what you'll see on the bottom of page 3 is it includes a sample and introductory letter where they can put their name on it so that it has, they have some ownership for it. It describes how you will save money if you get a permit, you do the job right. It explains how there's an energy calculator that's available to you so that you're going to save money when you hire the right contractor and you comply with permit laws. And of course, we included all of our consumer protection information. And I really want to thank Rick Lopes and the public affairs staff for the work that they did on it. Because if you turn to the next page, you'll see that it's very professionally done. It's currently on the website. Nancy Springer and I had the opportunity to address building officials throughout the state, and I didn't realize it until she actually presented this at the Calvo annual business meeting, and the response was very favorable. They were all over it. We had the California Energy Commission bring it up on their laptops so the building officials could see it for themselves. Again, it's gone live and it's available. And I know the public plumbing, heating, cooling contractors and other associations that we partner with are actively using it. Are there any questions about the service repair update?
Yeah, actually, there's not a question, it's a comment. You guys did a great job on this. I mean, I'm in the HVAC industry, and I went through this, and this is phenomenal. This is a great job. I hope we can expand this to other areas, because this is amazing. This is something that we can do with so many different things. I mean, your department, Dave, has just done a great job on all this. Thank you. Anybody else? Any comments from the public?
Question? Does this, David, does this have our logo on the top of this letter that they're allowed to use?
Rick, would you want to answer that? This is actually what's available online as you see it.
Yes, they are. And we've got a spot there at the bottom where they can actually attach their business card. And this is a fill-in PDF, so it does have that on there. They're not allowed to change that.
What we're looking
yes,
at on
and where it
this
says,
page?
thank you for choosing, where it says F&H Property Management, it's a blank spot. They can fill in their own name and their own license number. And they can fill in what you see kind of bold there at the bottom with the representative contact. They can fill that in. They cannot change any of the other copy. The only thing they can do is just add in the additional information specific to their license.
Including the logo at the top, right?
Yes, our logo shows up just the way you would see it here.
Christy?
I don't want to be the wet blanket here, but that's kind of my job. And I would recommend removing the logo because I think it implies an endorsement of the contractor that I don't think would be a good idea for the state to take a position with respect to any individual contractor. It's fine if you want to give them template language, but to have the letterhead of the agency at the top is something I think we'd recommend against. And it's just advice. You're free to disregard it, but that would be my recommendation.
Paul?
Well, I think what we are doing is exactly that. What we are doing is endorsing the people that go through our licensing process. That's kind of the point. So, you know, my opinion on the issue is that they should be able to put that logo up there because they've earned the right to. But that's my thought.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead. Pastor, I didn't see you.
Well, my concern would be, yeah, I do share your concern, believe me. But I'm just concerned that someone could download this information, and how do we protect ourselves that, you know, non-licensee or someone that's really not part of your ambassador program use this to their benefit? I don't know what the criteria is to verify or approve that they're part of this ambassador program.
I think that could happen with anything that's out there on the web these days. I mean, you just have unscrupulous people, and we hope they're very few and minimal, and that the good contractors take advantage of this program to show the consumers that this is what a good contractor looks like.
If I may, the intent of it is for the consumer to understand they need to go to the CSLB website, they need to be checking the pocket license, make sure the person they're dealing with is licensed and will get a building permit. So it would seem kind of, if somebody was unlicensed, this probably wouldn't be the document they'd want to use. But that would just be my...
So maybe you could add that language at the bottom of this form letter that to verify the person's contract information, please contact the Contractor State License Board at 800 or go to your website.
Augie?
I share the same concern you got with putting our logo on there. I know they've been through a class, but all it takes is one mess up by them, and then everybody's going to start pointing the fingers at the license board saying, well, you guys ran them through this program, you guys endorsed them. I don't think the logo's a good idea. Maybe some language at the bottom saying that they've been through a certified course or something. I don't know the legalese behind that. But once you start putting our logo on these groups, and then one of them happens to mess up, or like Pastor said, someone finds a way to download it off the internet, then we're on the hook. And I think, you know, not being a lawyer, but if we have a contractor who starts out good, winds up being bad, and they're held liable, at what point are we held liable as an agency? And the state's got the deep pockets, right? So ultimately, I wouldn't go for that. I do think that maybe some language at the bottom saying that they've been through a pre-certified class.
Some sort of disclaimer.
If you have any questions, go to the website. But anything that looks like we're going to endorse somebody is not a good thing. It goes back to the open mic at the beginning where everybody's got to have a chance to talk, but we can't really comment on it because it taints us, and we don't want to be tainted as a board. That's it.
Joan?
Well, prior to Augie's comment, I was just going to ask, and I think Linda wanted to speak too, but I was just going to ask whether or not we were going to have some sort of verification process that, you know, the consumer could go through to make sure that this person is, or entity is on this ambassador program. And the only way that they could do that would be to see it on the website, I'm guessing. But now it sounds like we're almost beyond that, since I opened up yet another can of worms here. And yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's something to give some thought to. I think Augie's comments are important.
Cindy?
I just want to clarify, is the issue of having the board's letterhead up, logo on the top of the letter, it's not on top of the other information that we have that goes along with the package?
I think the fact that you have a document where you have the licensee attach their business card to your letterhead is my biggest concern.
So it's just the letter?
The package of information explaining your program is your program.
Okay.
So I'm not that concerned about that unless Kurt has other concerns.
No, I think, Mr. President, members, I think Christy raised an excellent point. We don't, as a state agency, we can't sanction, endorse, and embrace any particular provider. I think what we could do is disclaim it and say you're participating, you're participating in the ambassador program, and then kind of, we follow these recommendations to the extent that we don't want to say they're better or whatever than anything else, because if you think about a licensing and its core functions, a minimum qualifications game, the second you get licensed, you get licensed. We don't have extra super special licenses for anybody. So that would be only my concern, just a level playing field. We can certainly say we participate in the program, and I think we should kind of, with a disclaimer, and kind of leave it at that.
And I think there's specific provisions in law, and I can't remember which code sections they are, that say you're not allowed to advertise, a private party is not allowed to advertise anything using the state seal or state logo that implies endorsement by the state. So that's where I'm concerned. And also, as Mr. Beltran pointed out, if we do allow it, then there is an argument that can be made that if there is a damage to the consumer, that you're going to be sued right along with the contractor. So that's the liability that we're talking about.
Linda?
Yeah, I think that I'm on the same line here. I think they should use their own letterhead and attach our stuff behind it, because we know how many people go out and say, I'm a licensed contractor, and people just accept that. Can you imagine if they show up with a letter from the Contractor State License Board with their business card on it and say that they're licensed? We have too many people who are not checking now, and we're trying to get people to check. I think that would be people would look at that and say, I don't need to check. They've got this license. I mean, it's right here on the contractors. That must be true, right? So I kind of go along with taking off our stuff on the letter and leaving it on all the background material, which is clearly from us and says what these people should be doing.
Yeah. Ed?
My question is on this letter. The wording, it seemed to me it's putting the onus on the homeowner, where it says you got to go through some steps here, and once you go through the steps, you will discern for yourselves, if that's what I'm hearing here, is that, oh, this is not the right contract for me, it's not the right contract for that. But maybe the wording can be changed so that the consumer will be more diligent in selecting who he will go with as an HVAC installer. I don't see anything that will put the onus back on FTB. It says that you make sure that each contractor is licensed. You make sure. So once you go through that, what else do you do except take the logo off maybe But I think it's okay, it's just putting more work on the consumer, which it should be. Yeah, that's all.
John?
Dave? So, seems like, you know, we want to attract contractors to participate in the program, and one of the ways of doing that was, you know, having the logo at the top, but we're concerned about having the logo because, you know, of liability or whatnot. As I read the letter, it does not say anything about that they've participated in the ambassador program or they've qualified for this CSLB ambassador program. And so maybe there's something in between not having the logo and yet, you know, ensuring board integrity and the other concerns that everyone is expressing, and yet not detracting from someone that might be interested in participating in the program. We don't want to lose all the mileage we've gained and all the hard work enforcement has done on this program. We want people to participate in that ambassador program. So,
Paul?
Maybe I'm a little bit confused. Is the dilemma, and I think I'm asking this to you, Augie, more than anybody else, is the issue that you're having that some of these contractors participate and some don't? Or is the issue that we're endorsing contractors that are licensed in general?
Through the chair. So going through the program is a great thing. Having documentation behind that saying that these employers, these contractors have gone through the program and this is what you should look for as a consumer is a great thing. But on the letter where it has our letterhead or any logo speaking to or anything that would give the public the idea that we as a board or the state has endorsed this particular contractor as being better than the rest, or, you know, this is the person you want to use, it sets a precedent. And what it does is it says the state says this is a good person to use. Now, at some point, should this person fall off the ledge and become a bad person, the implication is that we still endorse them.
But my question isn't that. My question is this a distinction between when you say someone went through the program, you mean the ambassador program or the program of getting a license?
No, the ambassador program.
Then I agree. I think you're right.
And I think that as a consumer, whenever you get something and it's got, and let's say we just set the precedent of putting the logo on there. And this thing is, right now I'm looking at it in a PDF, which could be really easily changed into a Word doc. And if people get the impression that anything with this logo is good, I could download this, put my information on there, and people would naturally assume that the license board had done whatever. So I think that
people can do that now.
Yeah, they can do that now. But right now, we can, it's like, let me draw a comparison. The IRS doesn't call you by phone if you have a problem, or which one is it? They call it, they send you a letter, right? They send you a letter, they don't call you by phone. So you can go out and say, if somebody calls you by phone and says, I'm the IRS, you know it's bunk. Same thing with this. If we establish a precedent where contractors can use our logo and our license board, or license, or our logo or our letterhead, then bad contractors can also do that, and then people don't have the idea that this is a good or a forged document. Right now, we can say anything with our letterhead or our logo on it is a forged document. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I know she knows what I'm talking about, yeah.
Cindy.
Okay.
I think just to kind of clarify a few things and maybe wrap things up, I just want to clarify that this isn't a program that people go through. It is just documentation they can download off our website so that they can give it to the consumer when they go give a bid for a project. It's not an official program where we endorse them or they're going to be on some special list or anything. It's just for them to educate the consumer on what a contractor should do, what a good contract should look like, that type of thing. And then the second thing is, I think we're hearing loud and clear that we should remove this logo from the top, so we will do that. And I don't know if David has anything to add about that. I did okay on it? Okay.
I guess I got confused because on page 3, it says contractors participating in the ambassador program receive the following. So it seemed like they went through something. That's why I...
No.
So they
Okay,
don't
maybe
go
we
through
can
any
clarify.
formal training or
No.
receive any additional information if they sign up or something? Okay.
No, it's just a package they can provide to the
All right.
consumer.
Kevin?
She had,
Yeah, and I'm just going to chime in on it just a little bit because I am from, that's my industry or whatever, is basically all this states is what you're supposed to do. That's it. If there's nothing else on here, it's not, I mean, any contractor in the state that installs an HVAC unit is supposed to do this. So that's it. It's not like they have extra training or anything. That's what they're supposed to do. Linda?
So if I understand it, because it does say on 3, contractors participating in the ambassador program receive the following: introductory letter, which can be modified by the contractor to include the contractor's name, license number, and contract. So what we're saying is that introductory, and then the next 3 items are the things that come with all the logos on them, with the benefits and all that. So this does say that they get this for participating in the ambassador program. So is that a correct statement? And are we saying that we want to take the logo off the introductory letter? The logo stays on everything else. The introductory letter is just, here's some suggested wording, right, for a letter that you can put on your own letterhead and attach your business card, and then you can attach those other recommended documents, the 3 following, which are really very helpful. So is that what we're saying we're going to do?
Yes.
Well, are we also saying that we're going to put the disclosure, disclaimer statement on the letter? I mean, is that a recommendation you're going to follow up with?
Yes.
Through the chair. I think it would be safe to say that anything that we put out would go through legal, right?
Yes.
Okay. Kevin?
there's not going to be a disclaimer because there's not going to be a letter, right?
We'll just have the same letter, Kevin, but probably change a few words on it so that it doesn't look like we're endorsing it in any way, shape, or form. Just have, this will just be sample language for them with no logo on top. We'll just put your letterhead here, something like that, and then put a disclaimer on the bottom that, you know, the board doesn't endorse. I'm sure Christie will come up with some good verbiage for us.
And I'm assuming that they're going to just use this letter with this packet when they go to a bid, because when a licensed contractor can bring this to them and then a non-licensed contractor can come and give them a bid, well, they can't do this because there's not licensed, and I'm assuming that's what this is all about. So, Dave, correct?
It was all designed to get information in the hands of the consumer so they can make the informed decision on who to hire. And we will, we'll work with Rick Lopes, take the letterhead off, run it by our attorney Christie, make sure she's okay with it.
Yeah, we're in the process where we'll move it off the website probably in the next few minutes, and then we'll get it updated, legal approval, and we'll make sure everybody's happy with it before it goes back on.
Frank?
Does this require a board action?
I think it's just, you can just direct staff. I mean, I would just assume it's staff direction from.
Okay, thank you.
Just personally, I think it's a very good program. I think any information that you give consumers to enhance their knowledge as to what to look for is excellent. So please, staff, don't take it as a negative. It's a real positive criticism on our behalf, but thank you for listening to us.
Does anybody from the public have any comment? Beat this one up good. Okay. Let's see. Dave, go ahead.
Okay, just one last agenda item, F4. And this was discussed at the Enforcement Committee meeting. We did show the slides and went over them in some detail. Just want to summarize what this program would entail. And it would partner with select building officials that want to work with CSLB by putting our material out for their customers, by having a direct working relationship with CSLB investigators, and in turn we would prioritize their referrals. We would conduct stings. We'll work with them on going out and performing site visits. The one area that we do need their cooperation in is the requirement that a check for $250 be paid upon service of a subpoena. What you'll see on, I guess on page 2 is the legal action statistics. At the top left of the page, you'll see where in 2010 the board directed staff to prioritize the enforcement of permit requirements, and we developed a new complaint form where people can file anonymously. These are contractors that maybe didn't get a job, building officials, others are filing complaints, and it's been incredibly successful. You'll see that over 200 legal actions were issued in 2014, and these aren't legal actions that were filed by consumers that may have a code violation. There's probably another 200 of those. These are specific to the form where people can file against a contractor for a permit violation. They resulted in citations. Some of those are getting appealed. We need the cooperation of the building official in order to support them. If you have a consumer-driven complaint, you're going to have workmanship issues. An industry expert may be able to testify to the code requirement. But if all we're looking at is someone that did work, did not get a permit, we're going to need the building department's cooperation if it goes to hearing. Again, it only happens maybe 5 times a year, but when we serve that subpoena, we can't be issuing a check for $250 upon service. We can only pay for their time after their services are rendered. And Nancy, I would like for you, if you don't mind, to share a little bit about the comments that we received at the California Building Officials Annual Business Meeting a couple weeks ago.
Sure. Thanks, Dave. And we would like to thank Dave. He did a great job in making this presentation and coming down to Monterey to present that to, I think there was over 200 people in the room at the time, many building officials, and we're going into a time period where there's a lot of new building officials. So this was received with a lot of interest and a lot of want to participate and grow the relationships. And we had a lot of comments of wanting the CSLB to come to some of their local chapter meetings as well as to the building departments on how they can do a better job on identifying things to the consumer and how we can work with better relationships with CSLB. So this was a great first step, and moving forward with it, I think it's going to be a success.
Some building officials requested that we attend city council or board of supervisor meetings, and maybe they would adopt this by resolution. But I do want to make very, very clear that the operational agreement that's included in your package was reviewed and approved by DCA Legal.
I want to make it clear also that the one in your packet isn't matched the one that we worked on. So
it's not this one.
It's not this version. It's a different one. So we can provide you a follow-up version that includes some of the changes that I worked with Dave on. Things like performing shoddy work should say performing substandard work, because it's really work that falls below industry standard that you're concerned with. And then also, I also discussed the enforcement committee meeting, the fact that if you're going to be sharing information, there are occasions where you're going to get or receive or send or exchange information with the building officials that is confidential or you don't want to make public because it's part of an ongoing enforcement or joint prosecution of an issue. And when that happens, you have to have in your agreements how you agree to share that information, how you're going to keep it confidential, and how you're going to prevent people who have really no authority to receive the information in your agency from having access to it. So only those authorized persons who are involved in the prosecution should have access to confidential information. So we've added that kind of information to the agreement, and I think Mr. Fote indicated that their legal office is interested in reviewing those changes as well. So it's good that, you know, that these agreements are put in place, but it's always important to make sure that the information that you're sharing is, if you don't want it to be confidential, you have to put it in writing that you're going to maintain it confidentially.
I have a question about it. So you're saying that their legal department also wants to review this before it's final?
Well, what it's going to be it's an individual agreement. What some of these building departments are asking for is that we would have this operational agreement as a template or background, but that someone like our Deputy Chief Enforcement, Christina Delp, who's not here, so I'll give her an assignment, would go out to city council members and maybe explain this, and that it would be adopted that they would partner with the CSLB, that there would be just general things that we would agree to do. They would agree to put our material out, they'll agree to waive that $250, and we're going to partner with them and report on our success. Others, they may enter into something like this to the operational agreement, but they would want to run it by their city attorney.
I guess so this is just a basic document that we want the board to approve today, with the changes that Ms. Shields just indicated.
What we're asking for is that the board would approve staff or enter into operational agreements that are the ones that were approved by DCA Legal with partnering building departments. So what we're really wanting to do, though, is to have that direct relationship like we do with the City of Compton. The City of Compton, it's not in writing, but yet there is an understanding as to what we're each going to do for each other.
So it's more approving the concept?
Yes.
Not the actual language? Okay.
Correct.
Question?
Joan?
In these efforts, has there been an attempt to contact greater organizations such as League of California Cities or California State Association of Counties to get a little mileage on our endeavor? Sometimes that's partnering with those entities is can be very proactive in terms of getting the message out.
Yes, I have contacted the League of California Cities. But if I could just clarify something, though, the problem that we're trying to overcome is that we did issue over 200 citations last year, and the Attorney General's office is expressing concern that we shouldn't be doing that in the future unless we have an agreement, whether it's in writing or it's verbal, with that building official that they're going to support our action. Because these citations, some of them are not going to be sustained. So that's really what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to overreach. If we could come up with 20 building officials that we could partner with in the next year, we would consider that to be a success. But again, this is only for those where we don't have a consumer filed complaint.
Any other questions?
Chair, motion to approve in concept.
Second.
Okay, anybody from the public? Okay, roll call vote.
Kevin Albanese. Augie Beltran.
Aye.
Linda Clifford.
Aye.
David Diaz.
Aye.
Susan Granzella. Joan Hancock.
Aye.
Pastor Herrera.
Aye.
Ed Lang.
Aye.
Frank Shetter.
Aye.
Paul Shafino.
Aye.
Johnny Simpson.
Aye.
Nancy Springer. Thank you.
Okay, before we get into licensing, Rick Lopes has some
Thank you, Mr.
IT
Chair.
issue.
Thank you. Something not necessarily for the people in the room, but people who are watching us on the webcast. We understand there's been some problems with the web stream. We're working with the hotel folks here, so bear with us. What's happening is every 2 or 3 minutes it's dropping down, then coming back up. So I'm sure for the people watching, a couple dozen people watching right now, it's probably very frustrating, but just hang in there. We're trying to take care of it. And an archived version of the entire meeting will be placed online by the end of this week. So in case there is something that gets missed, it will be posted online at a later time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rick. Licensing, Linda Clifford.
Thank you, Chair. So before we get to the licensing and testing program updates, I just want to report on a couple of things, some pretty cool milestones for our licensing division. First of all, we established our first new classification in 14 years, and that's the new C22 asbestos abatement contractor, which we all voted on a while back. And by the end of February, the board will have issued the first 5 of those licenses. So that's considering that it was January 1st that we went in, and by February we have 5. That's very good. Perhaps more interesting is that on January 10th, the CSLB issued license number 1 million. I'm glad I'm not the guy who has to fill that out. And but anyway, pretty cool. And it went to a tree service company in Norwalk. So that's pretty cool. So, and that says a lot about, you know, how long we've been here and what we've been able to accomplish in all this time. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, Karen, to move things along?
Absolutely. Well, since enforcement took all the time again, I hate following him.
Okay, legal will help you out.
I'm just going to touch on a few highlights. You have all of the stats in the packet. I'm sure everybody got a chance to read them, maybe your nighttime reading. So if there's any question on the stats, let me know, but I won't go over all those. But a couple of things I wanted to highlight. The LLC program, as you can see, we've gotten almost 2,500 LLC applications. I don't think any of us expected it to be that high, but it has been. Unfortunately, we still have an issue with having to reject them, and we've only been able to issue 817 so far. And the reasons for, the common reasons for reject are listed on page 4. Nothing's really changed much there. The workers' comp recertification, we had really high hopes that it was going to raise the number of people actually getting workers' comp policies, but what we're finding out is we're still having pretty much the same percentage recertified that they do not have any employees subject to workers' compensation. May be true, may not. It seems at almost 60%. It's a little high. So.
Question?
Yes.
The point of that was so that individuals seeking recertification would do so under penalty of perjury?
Correct, which I believe will be beneficial to enforcement should we find that they have falsely indicated they didn't have employees, because now every 2 years, under penalty of perjury, they're having to tell us, nope, still no employees.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Thank you.
This means no employees, secretarial staff or anybody, right?
Well,
they're all covered by workers' comp.
Yeah, it means no employees subject to workers' compensation. The office staff still are employees subject to workers' compensation.
Exactly. Right.
Then, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ken.
Through the chair, just while we're on this, and I know we talked about, I think at one of the committee meetings, is there a way to get a statistic by license classification of who is certifying that they have no employees, especially in the sub-trades? I know that we have the deal where there's no solo roofers. I'd submit there's probably not too many solo concrete contractors, not too many solo structural steel contractors, et cetera.
Yes, we can. And just to clarify, like roofers, they can never certify that they're exempt. They must always have a policy. And I apologize, Kevin, because I think you've asked for this before, and I will get you that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think that would be very beneficial to find out how it's by different classifications.
Yeah.
For all of
Include in the next report.
Yes, we'll include that in the next program update. We'll break it down by classification.
Yeah.
Then, moving on, experience verification. We've discussed this in the past. The experience verification we were doing at the application technician level. Well, in July, the experience verification unit was moved from enforcement to the licensing division, and we have our first set of statistics in the package for you on pages 10 and 11. And just to clarify, the licensing division is using the same procedures that were used in enforcement. Nothing's really changed other than who's doing the work. So these are the statistics. On page 10, you'll see the total number of verifications performed, whether they were denied, appealed, verified, and then on page 11, we do break it down by the type of classification and how many were verified, denied, appealed, and withdrawn. License information call center stats are in there for your reading enjoyment, and then, of course, the judgment unit. We've got the breakdown, and unless there are questions on any of the stats, I'll just let that go at that. Questions from the board? Public? No? All right.
I just wanted to say it's good to continue to see the number of weeks continue to go down. So, you know, we really, almost everything being expedited now, so it's pretty cool.
Yes, yes, it is getting much better. And when we talk, I think in the executive about the strategic plan, we'll discuss the reviews we've been doing of the licensing units to hopefully streamline and expedite the process.
Did you talk about testing?
I'm just going to mention one thing on the testing, which relates to our new classification, the asbestos abatement project. The testing unit was able to put together the exam in time for the January 1st implementation. I think Wendy was ready to pull her hair out, but her and her great staff got it done. They put together a really great panel of subject matter experts. I met with them as well, and they just did a fantastic job. So I really appreciate all that our testing unit does. And unless there are questions, that concludes.
Pastor.
Yeah, just on your judgment unit. Cindy sent us on a weekly report that they hired a new collection agency to do some of their collections for them. My question was, do you actually follow, I guess you do follow up with some of the people that owe for fees or judgments or whatever, right? Your unit does.
Well, they're kind of two different things. The judgment unit handles judgments, obviously, yeah. Outstanding liabilities. We're not really collecting this money ourselves. We are assisting in getting this money collected either for consumers or FTB or EDD, because if they don't pay up, we suspend them.
That's correct.
The collection agency, I think, relates more to what David's program does when they have an outstanding, say, citation to us.
Yeah.
If they haven't paid their fees, like if check bounces or something, the cashier's unit will send out a notification to them.
So my question is, do you ever send some of these that you have problems collecting to the collection agency?
No, not on these. That's up to, if it's like a franchise tax outstanding liability, that's up to franchise tax to collect. We will suspend the license if they don't pay it, so they have a reason to want to pay it. So that's kind of how we assist with that, right?
Pastor, the collections basically is all we agreed, yeah. David's group.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for us.
Is that it for licensing? Okay, great. Great job, guys. Public Affairs, Pastor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad my staff person is back. In any event, I think we'll be quick here. A couple of milestones here for the Public Affairs Division. One of the things is they have their accomplishments and activities report that's just fresh off the presses. I think each of you have one. So I think it's a good read, and it gives you a little more information on some of the activities and accomplishments of the board. The other thing, on March 10th, they held the 400th Senior Scam Stopper, and that program, as you know, has been very, very successful, and you're always encouraged to participate or go to one if it's in your area, particularly if your local legislator is sponsoring it. It's a good time to maybe meet their staff and meet the representative if they're there. The other milestone is they had a very, very, last Friday, on Friday the 13th, good luck for the Contractors Board. They had a news conference for the Spring California Blitz. This was held in Madera, and they had extensive coverage from all over the state. And there's other items of interest here in the report. Of course, the social media stats are growing. And I was really impressed that there was a press release on the Industrial Bulletin concerning job openings with the Department of Housing and Community Development, where it was sent to the to the industry to see if they may be interested in applying for these positions. I thought that was a real good thing to do. Anyway, Rick, take it from there.
Thanks, Pastor. And actually, the request came to us from the agency, and they actually said they've gotten double the number of applications as a result of it. So they were very happy, and we were happy to help them out. I'll briefly go through the items here. On page 1, I did want to note for the board that we do have one vacancy, our information officer. We've gone through interviews. We're very close, and we would expect that before the next meeting, we're going to have a new person in place for that. On page 1 and going over to page 2 and 3, it's some of the website. As you well know, last September, we launched the new websites. We've been giving you information about the statistics that we have from the analytics that we get. And if any of the board members do have any questions, Keith Kuhn from our IT staff, who's here for another presentation later in the meeting, but he's one of our main people, and the board's very lucky to have him. He was one of the main developers and builders of this website. So if you do have any questions, he'd be a much better person to answer these than I do. But if you want to sound really smart with your kids or with other people, look at some of those items on page 1, because those are kind of the way that things on websites get measured. So if you want to sound like you know something about websites, there's some information. I'll just briefly note to you that some of the items that you see on page 2, the reason we included them is just to give you an idea that there's not just people from California that utilize our website. And people that utilize our website many times from out of state aren't necessarily looking at contractors' licenses. There's other reasons why they are, and in some cases the issues that we've dealt with in the past with web scraping and things like that do come into play. I'm not really planning to go into a lot of depth about that. Chances are at the next board meeting you're going to see these numbers dropping because our IT folks are doing some things to help because that's causing a lot of problems with our website going down and getting lots of hits from around the country and around the world that are somewhat malicious. So those numbers will change a little bit for the next meeting, but you do see that there. On page 3, we start to get into some of our social media, including the Flickr, the Twitter, and the Facebook. They do continue to grow. So if there's questions, I'll be happy to answer those. But moving on to page 7, as was mentioned in the licensing, is we did publicize the 1 millionth contractor license that was issued on January the 10th. And I would like to say that Public Affairs, we had a contest to kind of determine to guess. We've been tracking this for the last couple of years, and we actually missed it by 2 days. We thought it was going to be Monday, and the staff was behind, so they actually, Karen cheated and brought staff in on a Saturday and processed the license on a Saturday. So we would have been right. I just wanted the board to know we would have nailed it, but we didn't. What you see there as far as the no media events, that actually did change. As Pastor mentioned, on Friday we did have our press event. We did have 7 different sting operations last week. And see if I can remember, we had Tracy, Ione in Northern California, Madera and Bakersfield in Central California, and in Southern California, Rancho Mirage, it's a G that I always, Gardena, and San Diego. So we had 85 people that were arrested. The press event that we had was in Madera. It had been a couple years since we'd done a press conference in the Fresno media market, so we did it there, had good media coverage. We had a gentleman named Dave Lynn, who is the district attorney of Madera County, joined us, as well as Steve Frazier, who was the chief of police in the city of Madera. They served as one of our backups. The CHP was also there for backup and did a great job. It was, stings are always interesting things to be at, and I think we had a lot of good messages, and again, we got a lot of good media coverage. Also on page 8, you can see the publications. Pastor did mention the activities report, which you have in front of you, and we do have also the 2015 Contractors License Law and Reference Book, the 1,000-plus page doorstop, as we lovingly refer to it, is out. And if you haven't got a copy, I think board members should have received copies. It's also available for people watching for purchase online. On page 9, the list of the most recent senior scam stoppers, as well as looking ahead over the next couple of weeks. And as Pastor mentioned, on March 10th, we did have our 400th. And then finally on page 10, you folks don't see it because you're not on our intranet site, which is just for CSLB employees, but Public Affairs Office is kind of the main people that do oversee the intranet site for all of our employees. And so we just kind of wanted to update you on things that happen there, the kinds of things we make available to our employees. We update our front page. It's very much like a blog site, so when any kinds of things that happen that involve employees, we do stories and update it just like almost like a news site. And with that concludes the Public Affairs program updates.
Any comments from the public? the board?
One comment, Dave. On these two that senior scam stoppers in Sacramento or Sacramento area, do we have a legislative sponsor on those, or is there somebody? It just gives a location.
Yeah, on the ones at a location, chances are it was probably somebody else that came to us. Sometimes these senior centers come to us separate from that. I will double check on the April 1st one to see if there's somebody tied into that, and I can let you know. But usually, if it's not, there's not a legislator tied to it at this point.
Pastor?
Thank you.
That's it? Okay, thank you. Right now, before we go into the legislative, we're going to go on a break. What time is it? Make it back by 10:40, please. Thank you. Before we head on to legislative, I want to ask Kurt to clarify. I've had some people come up to me and ask me about the clarification on the whole public comment deal again. Please.
Are you sure, Mr. Chairman?
No.
Okay, not to bore everybody with the details. I think the issue was the gentleman that came up had an individualized scenario before the board, and that's he was seeking a license. And so when it comes to that, like I've said, and not to beat the dead horse, but as the decision-making organ of this body, that's why I think my colleague and I jumped in to say, since there's a matter pending before this board, continued comment is inappropriate.
And it's not on the agenda.
And it's not on the agenda. I think the other thing, however, is if a person or an industry member or somebody would have said, I come up with a generalized concern, I think the board could have listened to what that gentleman said. We don't get in the business of essentially regulating content, but I think the board could have listened to that gentleman at the end of his or anybody's presentation could have said, you know what, this is an item that bears further discussion at the next or subsequent board meeting, and the board at that time could have said, it could have made a consideration to say, you know what, this isn't worthwhile, something that we need to look into. We can then agendize this for a complete and full discussion at the next board meeting. So that's why the distinction, because the gentleman that spoke had a matter pending before the board itself. Okay. So that's why I'm trying to draw the distinction.
And because he brought it up, or whomever, not just him, but if anybody brought something up and there's discussion, there's something nobody else, because it's not on the agenda, no other public person had the opportunity to come here and debate it one way or another, correct?
You're exactly correct, Mr. Because a member of the public could have said, well, had I known we were going to be talking about that, then I could have attended and got on the website, watched, sent Kurt an Instagram, whatever. So, so that's why the distinction.
Thank you. Okay, legislative, Joan Hancock, please.
Okay, agenda item I. I-1. Laura Zuniga is going to give this item. This is the review, discussion, and possible action regarding new legislative proposal to authorize sharing of license information with the Employment Development Department. On your, at the halftime, or at our break, Laura passed out these memos to further clarify what you'll find on page 1 of 1. So take it away, Chief Zuniga.
Thank you. So everyone should have a copy of language, and I apologize that I didn't provide it to you in advance, and it doesn't have a title on it, but it's 3 paragraphs of language that goes along with the first item. This is a new issue that did not come before the board when you took up the legislative proposals in December. In enforcement efforts, the department partners with various state agencies, and we need to share information about our licensees in order to effectively partner. And one of those things that we need to share is a licensee's social security number to determine if they should be a target in enforcement activities by checking their records to see if they've paid various state taxes and other types of money due to the state. So the Department of Consumer Affairs has recently told the board that we're not able to share social security numbers with the Employment Development Department or other state agencies because we do not have clear statutory authority to do so. Existing law provides us the ability to share it with the Franchise Tax Board, but does not provide authority to share with other entities. So we would like to sponsor legislation to give the board that authority this year, that's what this proposal would do, and that's what the language I passed out would do as well. So we've run this through legal counsel, and both Kurt and Christy provided some excellent feedback. So this is the language we would propose to go forward with the board's consent.
Motion. Questions before the motion. I just had to, I wanted to ask, right now the information that we gather, or that EDD gathers, they use EID numbers, isn't that correct? Employee identification numbers. You said this information would be, this for state use only.
It would be for state use. The only common identifier amongst all the state agencies is the Social Security number. We are now able to, as a result of recent legislation, use taxpayer identification numbers for licensure. So going forward, we would have that information for some licensees, but at this point, the only common identifier is the Social Security number.
And it also looked as though we do share some identification information. I mean, how is this going to improve, how will this improve what we do already?
It's going to allow us to continue to do what we do already. In particular, the board partners with EDD and other state agencies through the Joint Enforcement Strike Force and also the Labor Enforcement Task Force to partner with different agencies to, and then we target underground activities, for example, and so we use information we receive maybe from complaints or from other members of the industry that for someone to investigate as a target for a sting or a sweep, we will check that person out in advance, and EDD acts as the state clearinghouse for information for records. So they will have information as to whether the licensee is paying workers' comp, if they've paid appropriate taxes. So EDD serves that function, which is why we would need to share information with them. So it makes our enforcement activities more effective than we would be able to do without it.
I have a feeling that council may also bring up something that you did a little while ago, maybe an hour ago, about how we would go about safeguarding this information that's transferred to EDD.
Right, well, just really quickly, under current law, the boards within the department can share the Social Security number, federal employer identification number, and individual taxpayer identification number for certain purposes. These include to receive and match people who are on certain lists for family support judgment purposes. So if you're out of compliance with your family support, child support order, then we can match with, I think, is it EDD? Is it that does that? Provide us the certified list? Franchise Tax Board provides us the certified list, and we match people up for that purpose. In addition, for examinations with other states, we have licensing examinations. We're able to use it for those purposes. And if you fail to report it, we can report you to the Franchise Tax Board, who can impose a penalty, and also for tax delinquency. I don't know if you remember this issue. Some of you may have been here when the law was enacted a couple years ago to allow you to suspend someone's license if they are in the top 500 tax delinquents for the Franchise Tax Board. So for those purposes, we're allowed to share Social Security number and other taxpayer identification numbers and things like that, but there's no express authority for this purpose, which is, to help with enforcement for the underground economy and that sort of thing. So this language would expressly allow it. And also, if you see in subdivision B, there's some protection, as Ms. Hancock has mentioned, about how we keep information confidential. So the first sentence deals with what's called the Public Records Act. So it says, notwithstanding Chapter 3.5, commencing with Section 6250 of Division 7 of Title I of the Government Code, individual taxpayer identification number, social security number, FEIN, and shall not be open to the public for inspection, not deemed to be public records. So if we get a Public Records Act request or other request for information, we're allowed to object to the disclosure of that under this provision if it becomes law. The second sentence says, both agencies shall take all steps reasonably necessary to prevent the inadvertent disclosure of data transmitted or retained by either agency and to ensure that only authorized individuals have access to the information provided in this section. So that's the mandate on the agencies to maintain confidentiality and to treat the information with utmost respect and care when they're transmitting the information. The last sentence is about the intent being limited to these particular purposes, which is to use the data to help with the enforcement, mutual enforcement duties of both agencies with respect to the underground economy. So I don't know if you have any other questions about the language, but.
Do you see any downsides to this proposal?
I think if you're really going to, and it appears that you do really need this information to effectively enforce the laws in your jurisdiction, if that's what you need it for, and obviously this is a public protection issue, then yes, because if you don't have these laws on the books, then there is an argument that you cannot share that information with other agencies, and there'd be potentially a privacy argument challenge.
All right, so Augie, I'm sorry I cut you. Oh, Paul?
Is there any reason just why in Section B we dropped the federal employer ID number?
We collect all three types of information. If you look at Business and Professions Code Section 30, we're required, all the boards are required to collect all these different identifiers from applicants on initial licensure. That's where you get your source information from. When people first sign up with the board to get a license, they have to provide one of these three forms of identifiers to get a license. So that is, except for corporations, of course, but so that is a requirement, and because my understanding, and Ms. Zuniga probably could clarify, was that you do use all three in terms of identifying people for enforcement purposes, that you need to have express authority to share all three.
Laura, did you understand the
I did understand your question, and I don't think there is a reason that we don't have it in B, so I think we could modify it to include all, make it consistent throughout.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Pastor.
As I was reading the background paper for the upcoming hearings on the 18th, I did notice on issue number 11, there is this issue about sharing the information. Is this proposal response to this recommendation or this issue?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Other board member comments? And in anticipation, Augie, do you have, would you like to follow? Were you about to?
No, my questions were answered.
Okay. So, Laura, what would you like at this point?
If the board would like a motion and a second to approve the language, so we could seek the change this year.
And would that be inclusive of the concerns that Paul just raised with that amendment?
Yes.
Do you want to restate it?
Sure. So in subdivision B, we need to, I guess, we would make it consistent throughout that we list all three types of numbers in each subdivision, so it's clear we're talking about all three to cover all bases. So we will make that change. I believe it's just in subdivision B, but we'll make it consistent throughout.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
Any further, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion from board members? How about members of the public? All right, we'll take a roll call vote.
Kevin Albanese. Augie Beltran. Linda Clifford. David Diaz.
Aye.
Susan Granzella. Joan Hancock.
Aye.
Pastor Herrera. Ed Lang. Frank Shetter.
Aye.
Paul Shafino. Johnny Simpson.
Aye.
Nancy Springer. Thank you.
All right, item I2. This is the review and approval of February 20th, 2015 Legislative Committee Meeting Summary Report. The only comments I have are that that Legislative Committee meeting on February 20th was a follow-up to the December 15th, was it the 15th or the 16th? The 15th board meeting we had, and we had a lot of outstanding concerns and questions about the legislation back then, and we revisited it in committee and struggled through, again, in committee, some of the same things that are, you'll see the struggle as we proceed through the rest of the agenda packet. But at this time, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the report.
So moved. Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the 2015 Legislative Committee Summary Report. Any other board member comments? All the public comments? Seeing none, all those in favor will, we'll take a roll call vote.
Kevin Albanese. Augie Beltran. Linda Clifford. David Diaz. Susan Granzella. Joan Hancock.
Aye.
Pastor Herrera. Ed Lang. Frank Shetter.
Aye.
Paul Shafino. Johnny Simpson.
Aye.
Nancy Springer. Thank you.
So agenda item I3, this is the review and discussion and possible action of recommended positions on several Assembly and Senate bills, and Chief of Legislation Laura Zuniga will present each bill.
First one is AB 750. These are the analyses that I emailed out to you last week, and there are copies available on the table out front if anyone needs it. The first item, AB 750, would allow any board within the Department of Consumer Affairs to establish a retired license category. Existing law allows everyone to have an inactive license category, which CSLB currently does. This would allow us to additionally have a retired license category. It's optional. We wouldn't be required to do it, so we would have the ability to determine if we would want to create that category, and we would need regulations in order to do so. Because it's permissive at this point, I think the board could just watch this legislation.
Yeah, explain, because I did have some questions from committee members, explain what you mean by permissive at this point.
So the language doesn't require a board to establish this category. It gives you the ability to determine if you would like to. So it doesn't say that you shall establish a retired category. The language of the bill, it provides authorization to do so. I think Christy has a comment too.
Comments? So a retired license, how would this help us? I mean, I think, David, maybe you'd be great to have some commentary on this. Oh, Linda.
As I read this, this is for DCA.
It would apply to all boards within the
That's
department.
what I mean. So there might be some board in DCA that wants a retired license category. Because it's a 30,000-foot rule as opposed to board by board, CSLB might use this or might not use it, but it's not about us. It's about DCA, right? Because I thought the same thing. Why do we want this? Right.
Please.
It's an option available to you.
Yes, it is applicable to all the boards in the department, true. The one thing I did want to point out is, just going forward, if you did elect to use this authority to promulgate regulations for retired status, one of the things I noticed that's been, for years, have been missing from this section is, for the healthcare boards, they have a similar provision that allows them to promulgate regulations, and many have. But one of the things it says in there is that if any person applies to be in a retired status, they cannot have a pending suspension, any kind of disciplinary action on their license, because what happens is sometimes people use this retired status to avoid prosecution by just going into a retired status. So What the language says for the healing arts boards or healthcare boards is that the board shall deny an applicant's application to place a license in a retired status if the license is subject to an outstanding order of the board, is suspended, revoked, or otherwise punitively restricted by the board, or is subject to disciplinary action under this chapter. So that prevents the person from using the retired status as a mechanism to avoid prosecution. So that would be something maybe you'd want to bring to the author's attention, even if you're not going to throw your hat into a particular position, just so that, you know, if it does go forward, that you have the authority to deny people like that if you want to promulgate that type of a license status.
Sure.
A good recommendation.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we still have Linda's concern, like, why are we doing this? And that's why I was curious, David, does this in any way impact, you know, there's certain entities that, shall we say, buy or take on the license of someone that is retiring. Am I right in how I'm describing this?
Yeah, my thought is it may be beneficial for someone that wants to serve as an industry expert to say I've retired from the profession, but I could still be used as a consultant rather than I'm inactive and I don't have an active license at this time. I get to see where there will be licensees that have had a very strong construction career that would be proud to have something like that, rather than just saying I have an inactive license, I'm now retired and here's my retired license. That's where I think the benefit could be.
Karen?
I just have a question. One, how does retired differ from inactive? And two, what if they retire and then 10 years later want to come out of retirement? At this point, if they stay inactive, they can reinstate their license. If they go to retired, we have a 5-year rule that once you are out of the business or don't have an active or inactive license for 5 years, you have to retest.
Right. It doesn't at all define any of the parameters for the license, so we would presumably define them through regulation if they don't make the language more specific.
Cindy?
In a prior life, I was the executive officer with the engineers board, and we did have a retired status over there. And as David was saying, it did help individuals that, you know, were up there in the years and just, they didn't want to go inactive. They wanted to have a retired status. But I really like the portion where if it's under suspension, like if they're going to be getting suspended or revoked, they can't retire. Sometimes we use it as a condition sometimes where, you know, why don't you just retire your license? But it was beneficial in some ways. But to answer your question, Karen, once they retired, they really couldn't come back unless they went through the whole application process again. So there were a lot of limitations. And then as far as a fee, it was just like you pay one fee to retire it. It's not an annual renewal fee. You would get all the newsletters and still the material from the board, so you could still stay engaged with the practice that way. That was just the way that it worked there.
Anybody else? Is this something that's ripe for a proposal at this time, or should we take more time in committee, or staff, do you have more that you would like to give us?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr.
I think we
Beltran.
just direct staff to forward those comments that we just talked about.
Okay.
We don't have to do a motion or anything.
Give us some pluses and minuses of, and I guess I would like to hear more about whether there's a downside to this.
Yeah, I mean, just watch it and then bring it back to us, and there were some concerns that were brought up, and they can express those concerns. We need a motion, I make that motion.
We don't need a formal motion on that. We're not considering this for a proposal at this time. We're just directing staff to give us further information.
I would just ask Ms. Zuniga, do you need a position from the board to go express your concerns to the author's office, or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I can bring it back to the board at the next meeting if it's developed further or if anything else goes into print that we might have more concerns with. But I think at this time it would be sufficient to just informally communicate with the author's office.
Historically, I think the board does not take it with a watch position. It's more not just sort of a low key. You don't need a motion to take a watch position.
Right.
Okay.
True. So we're on watch. Okay, next.
The next bill is AB 1060 by Assemblywoman Bonilla. This also applies to all the entire department, all the boards within the department. Under existing law, when a person has had their license revoked or suspended, boards need to send them a copy of the criteria for rehabilitation, as well as the provisions of law that allow applying for reinstatement. This bill provides that that requirement may be satisfied through first-class mail and electronic means. Existing law is not that specific. This bill will likely be amended further to have more substantive content. It is, at this point, for most intents, a spot bill, so I think the board could watch it at this point to see if it's amended further to have more substantive language.
Yes.
So existing law, Business and Professions Code, Section 124 says any board in the department can serve any notice is required to serve by law through first-class mail if they have the address of record for their licensees. So I think there's some argument that you already have authority to serve by first-class mail, but the thing that concerns me is the way it's written. It says may be satisfied through first-class mail and by electronic means, so it's not clear if you have to do both or you can do one or the other. And if it's one or the other, I think I would have concerns about defensibility by service by email. At this point in time, I don't know that the boards can really take a strong position that service by electronic mail is effective, because there aren't any presumptions in law for service by electronic mail right now. There are for sending stuff through what they call snail mail now, because there are, code sections that give you a presumption that as long as it doesn't come back in the mail, it's received. So I'm just not clear whether we need it, number one, and number two, to me, the and part needs to be clarified if it's both or one or the other.
I was just going to say, so I think you're saying that it might meet its own demise based on service by email?
I would have concerns if what their intent is to say that you can satisfy it through first-class mail, and by that, whether they're meaning you have to do both first-class mail and email, or whether you can do just one or the other. Because the way it's written, it's not clear if it's service by both means or one or the other, and that needs to be clarified. And if they do mean that you can just serve it by email, I think that it would be, you'd be hard-pressed to legally meet your obligations to say it was served by email.
Sure, and the board's existing practice is to send it by first-class mail and certified mail. The language certainly is not clear as to what they intend to do with this bill. We don't have an email address on file for most of our licensees. We would never want to rely on that. However, because the author's office has indicated that they likely will amend the bill further, I think the board could watch it, and if it goes forward in its version, then we could raise that concern to them that the language needs to be clarified, that we wouldn't be comfortable relying on electronic means.
So staff's recommending, well, go ahead, Pastor.
No, I'm sorry for my ignorance, but how are they defining rehabilitation here?
It's defined in existing law, the criteria for rehabilitation, and I would have to find that for you.
License?
No, from the crime that you've committed. Or to, and I think in our regulations, we define rehabilitation as well. That would be specific to CSLB.
Send out a copy of your rehabilitation criteria that are in regulations, or sometimes they're in your disciplinary guidelines as well, but you'd send the person who had their license revoked that information and the information about how soon they could apply for reinstatement. That's what 11522 of the government code is about.
Linda?
I'd just like to recommend that we move forward on this with a watch, that Laura, we get both first class and electronic, and that our board doesn't have any intent to do anything different than it's doing today.
Paul, did you have something to add?
Well, I just want a clarification. We're sending it first class return receipt requested. That's what we're doing now?
We do first class and certified, yes.
Okay, great.
So it's recommended we maintain a watch position on this bill. So we're going to do that. We're going to move on to the next bill.
Okay, the next one is SB 119 by Senator Hill. This one is certainly more substantive than the first two bills. This enacts numerous requirements to change existing law relating to excavation requirements, or what's called dig alert. The author has been working on this issue for several years, and he has ongoing meetings with interested parties. The board has participated in the meetings, and so it's ongoing. There is language in SB 119 that is specific to CSLB, so that is the language that I focus on in the analysis. I'm recommending at this point the board take a support if amended position. That's really only related to the provisions that impact the board. What the bill requires us to do is not very different from what the board already does. So the amendments would make some changes to that effect to more clearly or more closely mirror what existing practice is.
Concerns? Start with Kevin.
Have we gotten any industry input directly to us about how this impacts the state license board?
No, nothing about our provisions from industry.
Linda, you had mentioned some concerns?
Well, I am concerned that we're getting pulled into something. You're saying that we're doing this already, but we're doing this under a current situation that doesn't have all of these restrictions in them, right? And we don't do the training. Yeah, and so I'm just wondering, first of all, whether we have any way of actually determining what the impact fiscally would be to us, but also in terms of, I mean, a couple of the changes I wouldn't, that you're recommending, I certainly wouldn't shorten the time for someone to get the training. You're cutting the time in half. Your recommendation is to get it in half. Is that why, is that where we are today?
That was enforcement's recommendation, was to give them a shorter amount of time to complete training so that you could take further action if the person doesn't complete the training. So if they're going to be facing further disciplinary action, they don't have as much time to do the training, and we could proceed, the board could proceed to the next step.
I think there's an awful lot of information going back and forth here that 30 days is just not, yeah.
Madam Chair.
Pastor.
It appears from what I see here that this has been in the hopper for a while, a couple of years. What has been the issues that hasn't been moved forward?
Yeah. Well, I think the author's interest stems from the fact that he represents San Bruno and is when he started to work on this issue, I think, more extensively. I think there are lots of unresolved issues out there as to problems with the existing requirements, and I don't think they're a lot closer to resolution, but they're still working on them. There's, under existing law, there are exemptions to when a person needs to call, and that is a large focus of the discussions right now, as to if there should be any exemptions, if you need to call, if everyone needs to call at any instance. So one of the pending issues.
So I'm holding off on you, Christy, because I'm really hoping that we vet all these questions before, you know, we get the boom.
Further comment on what Linda said, we do have authority under existing law to take disciplinary action for these violations, so we don't need the provisions in this bill to do that. We have agreements with some of the utilities to get referrals. If this bill were enacted, it is very likely that the number of referrals would increase and we wouldn't be able to absorb the workload, so we do need to work on the fiscal impact, and I think at this point we're not sure what the impact would be to the board. With the amendments, we are trying to minimize the impact to make it clear that the board's not going to develop training or administer training, but certainly it is an unknown how many referrals we would get and what that would do to enforcement workload.
Kevin?
Yeah, more of a comment for the board. I don't think anybody, I know I am not about lessening the requirements for safe digging, for consumer protection, and frankly for contractor protection. This bill, as I understand it, this part is a small part of a much larger issue that's out there. And I'm quite concerned as an industry person and as a board member that this is getting very, very politicized, and we're getting darts thrown back and forth from the utility, the subsurface utility operators and contractors, and there seems to be a pervasive feeling that if an underground utility is hit, that it's the fault of the contractor, and certainly that's not always the case. And I would just be very careful from this board that we don't jump on this in the spirit of consumer protection without fully vetting industry's position and what industry thinks about it. So I'd be very cautious about moving forward with this bill at this time with any support until we get that back.
Yeah. I also just wanted to add, board members may be aware, this particular issue is raised in the board sunset review report and is an issue that the board is asked to respond to. Senator Hill chairs the Senate Business and Professions Committee, which is conducting our oversight hearing on Wednesday. So it's timely.
Madam Chair, my concern would be when they list willful and deliberate violation, how can we quantify that if he's a licensed contractor and you say do it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, or, because I know there's records being maintained, I would say with a licensed contractor and they go into utilities and cut their lines, 2 times maybe delivered or 3 times maybe formed a habit. I'm trying to quantify the willfulness. Do you have any suggestion on that? I know it says, because that could be subjective in a lot of things. And if we say this is the 2nd time this person did it or the 3rd time this person violated.
Okay, and I'm sorry, you're referring to language in the suggested amendments? Or in the?
Yeah, I'm trying to add it because it's not there.
Oh, that we do add that it's willful and deliberate. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's certainly something the board consider. I think there's a presumption that if you're a licensed contractor, they are aware of these requirements. They're tested on them. It's part of the licensing exam for the relevant professions. So if they violate those requirements once they're licensed, that
after a certain.
Yeah, but we could explore that further with enforcement staff.
Okay.
Linda, I become even more concerned as we talk about this 30-day period. I mean, this third-party training, where is it? How do they get it? What if they can't get into a class in 30 days? I mean, I think whatever this is, and I think Board Member Lang brings up a good position, because we may decide that in order to try to be objective, we're just going to go on the number of violations. In other words, by the time you have a 3rd violation, that must mean that you're willful, because otherwise I don't know how you can judge one violation as being willful unless there's and so there may be an appeal process that would be invoked. I mean, how long would it take to get the training?
And the bill does provide, and we're trying to model existing law, the criteria the board would consider when taking disciplinary action, and that's the gravity of the violation, the good faith of the contractor's history of previous violations, and whether the regional notification center received a timely request to locate and mark. And the training that's offered, I think utilities provide training now, and I believe it's all online training to make it easiest for people to comply with the training. But that is one reason we'd like the board not to be responsible for the training.
Thank you.
Yes, perhaps in light of all of this, maybe it might not be a bad idea to get all the stakeholders together. And I would suggest the utility operators, Contractors State License Board, and the contractors, the licensees, at least as it relates to this part, to gather more information before we take a position.
Laura, you had a response to that?
The author's office is conducting stakeholder meetings with all interested parties. Are you suggesting that we do a separate meeting specific to the CSLB's provisions?
If they're asking for our support, I think we should.
Chair, not to interrupt, but I don't think that's a good thing to do. The senator has introduced a bill, and the senator is going to have the stakeholder meetings, and it's up to us to comment and work with the senator on the language, and then make a decision as to what we're going to do. That would be the best thing to do.
So at this point, we're trying to work with some language here, and we're not far along.
Right.
We'd like to
But I don't
support the concept, but
Right, I
it
don't
sounds
think
like
that
there's...
having stakeholder meetings and doing over, the senator's office is already
I was
doing
going
that.
in a different direction, which was, it may not be something that's right for today, if it needs further discussion. And
Right.
I
think it would be best to, staff has heard our problems with it, has heard what we like with it, and I think we should direct staff to work with the senator's office and bring back further information to the board.
Paul? Paul?
Yeah, and then we can bring it to committee and vet it out in a committee setting where we can try and root all this out.
And the author's office has indicated there will be another round, or a round of amendments coming for the bill that will make some changes. So if the board would prefer, perhaps they do not want to take action on the bill at this time, and staff can continue to participate in the work group and have informal discussions with the author's office and bring it back at the next board meeting or a legislative committee meeting before the board meeting to further discuss the issues. I do get the impression the board is not comfortable taking a support if amended position. So if staff has the ability to continue to work informally with the author's office, perhaps that is the best course.
I would, like to see that happen and possibly go to committee, direct staff to get further information for an upcoming committee meeting that we would set with you folks on the legislative committee. Okay, now, yes.
I would ask staff to contact industry groups and at least get their input. Whether or not we have stakeholder meetings, at least just get the input from industry. I think would be very important.
Well, and we could perhaps ask staff to participate in our legislative committee. I mean, ask industry to participate, not in it, but maybe testify at it. Of course, following all Bagley-Keene rules. Okay, Christy.
First of all, we probably recommend a motion to refer back to legislative committee if that's the committee you want it to actually handle this matter. But there were some issues that we had with the way the language was drafted too. We wanted to make sure that we conveyed those thoughts. I don't know, did you have ones that you wanted to
Chair, with all due respect, I would make a motion that we refer it back to Leg Committee and just let it go from there.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Do we have a second? Yes. Oh, good. Any further board comments? Anybody out there in the public? Yes. Mr. Vermeulen, please come to the dais and state your name.
Good morning, Phil Vermeulen. I just wanted to say for the record that the industry has been very involved. We've had stakeholder meetings at the Capitol since December, I believe it was. So everybody, including United, everybody's been in a part of those. Labor's involved in it. So this is being vetted, believe me. And we're all working together to try to come to a common goal. The initial bill that was introduced, Senator Hill said, I'm going to introduce something that everybody hates. And that's bottom line is what they've done. And then we're just going through the process now. We have various committees that are working on this. So it is being vetted by the industry very closely. Thank you.
Linda.
Thank you. So Phil, you don't see our action as delaying anything. I mean, we're just moving along in
and
the
Laura's
same
been a part of these meetings
process.
as well, so
Okay.
she can attest to it. And we've had various committee meetings, as I said, subcategories of parts of the bill and that kind of stuff. So it's being looked at very closely.
Okay.
And if something were to come about that we really had a serious issue, then the industry would come back to the board and say help or something. But at this point, I think just participating like you are right now is working.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, it's been moved. Anybody else from the public wanting to comment? All right, moved and seconded that we direct staff to get further information for us and also set up a legislative committee meeting on this subject and perhaps invite industry members to participate and testify for us. All those in favor, take a roll call vote.
Kevin Albanese. Augie Beltran. Linda Clifford.
Aye.
David Diaz. Susan Granzella. Joan Hancock.
Aye.
Pastor Herrera. Ed Lang. Frank Shetter.
Aye.
Paul Shafino. Johnny Simpson.
Aye.
Nancy Springer.
Okay, motion carries. Next.
SB 465, also by Senator Hill, is the bill that would extend the board's sunset date for 4 years. This is as you know, the board will have its sunset review hearing on Wednesday. It's traditional for the chair of the committee to carry legislation to extend the board's sunset date. It's possible the bill could be amended if there are any substantive provisions or amendments that the legislature would like to make to the board's statute, but at this point, it's just simply a sunset extension.
Comments? Nothing to vote on here. I'm sorry?
Motion we support.
Second. Board comments? Public comment? Roll call.
Kevin Albanese. Augie Beltran. Linda Clifford. David Diaz. Susan Granzella. Joan Hancock. Pastor Herrera. Ed Lang. Frank Shetter. Paul Shafino. Johnny Simpson. Nancy Springer.
Sorry, I had to do that. Okay, next.
SB 560 by Senator Monning contains one of the board's legislative proposals for the year. For the third time in 4 years, the board is seeking to amend Business and Professions Code Section 7011.4. This time we would allow enforcement representatives to issue a written notice to appear violation for failure to carry workers' compensation insurance. The board approved this at the December meeting. We did make some further modifications to the language at the suggestion of legal counsel. So at this time, we'd like the board to recommending the board take a support position on the bill.
Comments? Kevin?
I'd just like to make a quick comment. I did have the opportunity to attend a sting, and I know for the enforcement reps, the inability to issue a citation for failure to carry workers' compensation is bothersome. I mean, they see somebody out there committing what could be a felony or a misdemeanor, and they really can't do anything about it because they don't have authority to write it down on the citation. So I really think this would be great for our team that's out there, not only protecting our industry, but also protecting consumers from people that do not have workers' comp. So I'd support it.
Motion made.
Second. Any other discussion by the board? I have a comment. We took this up at the legislative meeting in November, at the board meeting in December, and at the legislative meeting in February. And it seems like we've vetted every issue there is to vet about it, and ultimately what it comes down to is CSLB really will have an opportunity to, I don't want to say partner with the DA, but provide this NTA to the DA, and no other agency gets to do this. So with that, I'd like to ask did I ask the public if they wanted to comment? Would you? All right, then we'll take a roll call vote.
Kevin Albanese. Augie Beltran. Linda Clifford. David Diaz. Susan Granzella. Joan Hancock.
Aye.
Pastor Herrera. Ed Lang. Frank Shetter. Paul Shafino. Johnny Simpson. Nancy Springer.
Okay, next is SB 561.
This bill is also by Senator Monning, and this is the board's second legislative proposal for the year. At the December board meeting, the board approved a concept, an outline of this proposal, so the language has been developed. It was reviewed at the legislative committee meeting. At the committee meeting, the committee voted to amend the language at the suggestion of legal counsel to provide for acceptance of electronic signatures. So the language is in your board packet. It's further in the legislative the legislative portion under the legislative proposals, but the language has been introduced in SB 561. So at this time, I'm asking the board to support this bill.
Comments?
Motion to support.
Second.
Board member comments? Public comments? Roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Kurt, did you have a comment?
At the danger of saying too much during a meeting, just a question for Ms. Zuniga. The support with this language being added in, correct? The electronic language?
That is correct. The bill is in print now. It doesn't have that language, so we would seek to add it through the amendment process. Yes, but for the board to support the bill with this suggested amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Roll call vote.
Kevin Albanese. Augie Beltran. Linda Clifford. David Diaz. Susan Granzella. Joan Hancock. Pastor Herrera. Ed Lang. Frank Shetter. Paul Shafino. Johnny Simpson. Nancy Springer.
Moving to, motion carries. Moving to agenda item I5, review and discussion of possible action regarding 2015 legislative proposals. The first one has just been laid to rest with SB 560 or 561? 560. The next one is the authority amendment to Business and Profession Code Section 7028.6, authority to issue citations and collection of additional information. Once again, this was something that our legislative committee met over two committee meetings, and we met as a board and talked about this issue in December as well. At the Legislative Committee on February 20th, a motion was made to not proceed with the proposal to authorize CSLB staff to collect Social Security information from non-licensees due to privacy concerns issued by legislative members, our staff, and our legislative committee. A unanimous decision was approved to not proceed with 7028.6. It was recommended we pursue other options and not waste the political capital. Is there any discussion? And would you like to further elaborate? Is there any further discussion on this?
It comes to the floor as a committee motion to act on by the board members because the committee voted to recommend not pursuing this as a legislative proposal. You'll need to act to decide whether you want to adopt the committee's recommendation or reject it.
So I would ask for a motion that this board adopt the legislative committee's decision to not pursue the proposal. We have a motion and a second. Board member comments? Public comments? Roll call?
Aye. Sorry.
Kevin Albanese.
Aye.
Augie Beltran. Linda Clifford. David Diaz. Susan Granzella. Joan Hancock. Pastor Herrera. Ed Lang. Frank Shetter. Paul Shafino. Johnny Simpson. Nancy Springer. Want to mix it up next time?
All right, that motion is, that motion carries. Next, D, amendment to Business and Professions Code 7137. Fee schedule, we had a lively discussion. Oh, did I skip one? Oh, I did.
Also lively.
Not, yes, not, it must have been a, one of those things. Amendment to add Business and Professions Code Section 7103.5, effective disciplinary action by Division of Labor Standards Enforcement. Yes, this was a very lively conversation. Once again, we discussed it 2 legislative committee meetings, and we brought it to the full board last December. So why don't you update us with the history, where we were, where we ended up at committee, what the proposal was by enforcement to work with us on this, and just basically update the board and the public.
Sure. This proposal was presented at the December board meeting. There was quite a bit of discussion and several concerns were expressed. The board did not approve the proposal and sent it back further action and appointed 2 board members to continue to work on the issue with staff, and that was Kevin Alvarez and Augie Beltran. So staff continued to work on it along with the 2 board members. After discussions, staff makes the recommendation that we not pursue the proposal for this year and instead take the 4 actions that are outlined in the analysis. The first would be to suspend licenses pursuant to B&P Code Section 7145.5 for an outstanding civil wage and penalty assessment. We're going to try to use existing authority to suspend licenses for those violations. Also amend the application.
These are on page 3 of your packet under the section C of I-5. I see people flipping around there in their packets. There's 4 recommendations. Page 3. 3?
Yeah, page 2 of 3 of the document. The second would be to amend our application to require applicants to disclose an outstanding labor or tax liability. Third would be to revise our existing MOU with the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement. And finally, to monitor 2 test accusations that the board is trying to take action under existing authority to determine whether or not we need to make further changes to the statute.
Chair? So moved.
Mr. Beltran.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Board member comments. Public comment. All right. Kurt, did you have something?
Just want to be clear on the motion is to accept the committee's recommendation on this matter. That's just want to clarify the motion because.
Do you want to re-amend or amend your motion, Augie?
No, he knows what my motion. Yeah. No, it was so forcefully and so quickly said. I just wanted to make sure.
Any public comment? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to accept the legislative committee's. I'm sorry? Oh, well, thank you. It's been moved and seconded to accept the legislative committee's recommendation on 7103.5. Roll call vote.
Nancy Springer.
Aye.
Johnny Simpson.
Aye.
Paul Shafino.
Yes.
Frank Shetter.
Aye.
Ed Lang.
Aye.
Pastor Herrera.
Aye.
Joan Hancock.
Aye.
Susan Granzella. David Diaz. Linda Clifford. Augie Beltran. Kevin Albanese. Thank you.
If we had just had some coffee. Oh, that's an inside joke. Okay. Moving on to, where are we?
7137.
Oh, the one I tried to skip. Yeah, the fee schedules. Laura.
So this proposal was presented at the December board meeting. The language was not finalized. However, I was not able to secure an author for this proposal, so we will pursue it again next year. So we don't need any further action by the board at this time.
I think
No reason to discuss it, no reason to abandon?
If we couldn't find an author, I think it kind of dies of its own accord.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, hands on here. Where are we now?
Now we're on the home improvement one.
Thank you. So that takes us to the HIS salesperson, home improvement salesperson registration, which we covered by SB 561. So we're done with that as well, which brings us to the end, Mr. Chair, of the Legislative Committee report, proposals, recommendations. I want to thank Laura for all your hard work as usual, and thank the committee for meeting again over this stuff, and thank you, board.
Okay, Executive Committee, review and approval of Register of Duty Statement. Cindy Christensen.
As was told to you when you made the hiring of the registrar position, this is the final step. The board needs to formally approve the duty statement that follows. And that was easy.
Got a motion and a second. Any
Is it a motion to approve the duty statement?
Yes. Yes. Any board members? Have passed
Is
on.
this revised from the previous one?
No, it's the same one. You just have to take formal action.
Anybody from the public? Yeah, okay. Roll call vote.
Kevin Albanese. Augie Beltran. Linda Clifford. David Diaz. Susan Granzella. Joan Hancock. Pastor Herrera. Ed Lang. Frank Shetter. Paul Shafino. Johnny Simpson. Nancy Springer.
Yes.
Administration update regarding personnel and facilities.
Just a few updates from the last board meeting. There really isn't that much going on. We do want to report that there is a record low of vacancies right now. We have 30 vacancies. Typically, we've been around 40. And as I reported, we'll be hiring the new chief deputy within a month or so. And I think that's really about it, unless anybody has any questions about any of the personnel or contracts that are ongoing. So move on to the IT.
Yeah, IT or information technology update. Cindy Kanemoto.
Good morning, board chair, board members. Again, my name is Cindy Kanemoto. I'm the Chief Information Officer for CSLB. And we have some statistics in your packet, and I don't need to go over all of those with you. What I'm really here for today is to talk about two things. Number one is the Breeze update. What we are doing at CSLB to prepare for Breeze is we are mapping all of the current processes so that we can make sure that we have the right requirements when we get to a stage where we are engaged with the Breeze project. Right now, the Breeze project is kind of in a holding pattern, so to speak, as they are waiting for the legislature to make a decision regarding an amendment to change the current contract and to add dollars to the Breeze budget. So that's as much as we know about the Breeze project at this time. But what we're doing at the board is to ensure that we are capturing all of the processes that are necessary to create a very robust technology change for the board and bring those components into action for our licensees. In the meantime, what we're doing is we're moving forward. And I have Keith Kuhn here to talk about and demonstrate what we're doing with the e-payment expansion. Currently, individuals can only come up to Sacramento to make a credit card payment at a kiosk that is at our headquarters location. We're looking to expand this to other locations throughout the state, the first one being Norwalk, and we are ready to move forward with that. We're expecting to go live with that at the Norwalk location, a kiosk, before the end of March, so within the next couple of weeks. After that, we're looking to go to Fresno, so we have a Central Valley location where individuals can come into the office and make a credit card payment. This will really help the individuals so that they don't have to pay a late fee if they're able to get there and pay by credit card if they can't have any other means to pay. And in the future, we're looking to move this to an online functionality for credit card payment. So at this time, are there any questions before I turn it over to Keith and he can show you the new application?
I have a question, Chair.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the Breeze project is on hold, and I guess we're in phase 3, right?
Right.
Okay, we allocated some funds for Breeze, and I believe it was 14-15. What happened to that fund? Is it going to be reallocated to 15-16, or is it going to be refunded back to the board, or what?
What we went to a budget meeting with the department, and basically because they did not get formal approval yet for their moving forward funds, we don't know what's going to happen to that. But for the 14-15, the funds are as they were stated originally. What was encumbered and allocated remained the same. The adjustments were in 15-16 and 16-17 for the SPR 3 amendment.
So you're saying that it's going to be moved forward, or?
We continue to pay for what was originally contracted.
Without any results, right? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
But is that the way that it's designed? Because if we're not getting any benefit right now, why use our funds? Can't we push it towards the next fiscal year? Just curious.
Yeah, I really don't know what they're doing with that.
Huh.
Ed and
Okay.
members of the board, everything is really up in the air right now. CSLB has expended a lot of money, but we were part of a contract. And unfortunately, those funds may go on to, phase 3 if we go along with it, but they've been expended, and I don't believe there's an avenue to get those back because the contractor has already been or will be paid out of that contract to this state.
Oh. That's all I have. It just seemed like something should have been moved forward, but since we've part of the pie, and I guess we can't split up the pie. Okay, thank you.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. So I'll go ahead and introduce Keith Kuhn.
Are you taking general questions?
Yes, sure.
Are you going to be talking about web scraping or not?
I can talk about web scraping.
Well, no, I just wanted to ask you.
Okay.
In line with this new breeze, the whole issue now is data breaches. And from what I read from the reports that are given to us, we have all kinds of firewalls and all kinds of protections. And sometimes I don't know if bigger is better, but now we're going to go into this new breeze system. And do you feel that there's going to be better protections for data breaching now with the new system? Has that been talked about in your discussions? Or what could you tell us about that? Because I'm also concerned about this web scraping, which seems to be maybe a way to get into our systems. And maybe you could talk about that also.
Okay, I'll take the web scraping first. With web scraping, one of the things that we're doing kind of as a pilot that we just initiated was Keith and Andrew Balaam actually created an avenue by which the system, when they go on and do a license search, because that's where they're going through and scraping data, it prompts them to use a CAPTCHA. So they now have to actually click a box, so it requires human intervention. And then if the system determines that that may be what they call a robot that's coming in and just scraping, continuously hitting the system, and that's what's brought down the system, they have to type in that CAPTCHA. So that's an insurance that that is an actual individual, not a program that's running just to gather that data. That has reduced the hits by more than 50%. From those robots, so we're looking at that. We've already applied that and seeing if that's something we need to keep in place as we move forward, but it was very effective. Now, in regards to the security, as we move to Breeze, OTEC will be maintaining the data. That's the Office of Technology Services for the state, and they have very robust security measures in place and firewalls, and we are also looking to get the industry standard firewall upgrade. We're currently looking at that as well. So we'll have many firewall protections in place to ensure that we're able to protect our data. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, well at this time I'll introduce Keith Kuhn, but I also want to give mention to Andrew Balaam, who was very active in creating this application. So after we demonstrate, we'll take questions.
so I'm just going to first let everyone take a look at the old system. Just the home screen, very text-based, not very contractor friendly. We have 12 payment types, 4 of which are on this page, and we force the contractor or applicant or I want to be a contractor to come in and go to another page, which once again, it's very text-based, not very intuitive. And from the conversations we've had with our front counter, this is where a majority of our contractors get stuck. They get stuck here. So we've kind of mimicked what we've done on the CSLB website, and we've gone to self-identification. What kind of person are you coming in to pay? So there are typically 3 people coming in to pay. You're either going to be a current contractor or salesperson, you're a current applicant, or you're applying to become one. Current applicants only have 2 options to pay. They can either pay their initial license fee or re-exam fee. Applying to be a contractor or salesperson, home improvement salesperson, original exam or original waiver. They shouldn't have to see all these other options that are on the page. So we're going to go into, I'm a current contractor. I received my renewal notice in the mail. I'm going to come in. I'm going to renew my license. At this point, they put in their contractor's license number. The mainframe tells this application, this is what they're allowed to pay. If they're not eligible to renew, the renewal is not going to show up. If they already have their asbestos certification, it's not going to show up again. So we've really filtered down the options to keep things more simple. So this is one of our test records in the database. As you can see, they have quite a few options available. You know, they're an inactive contractor, so they could reactivate. They're within their timely window, so they can either go timely, active, or inactive. Here's all the other license modifications that they can undergo. They can apply for the hazardous certification. They can apply for the asbestos certification. So you see a couple options here. We're going to go to timely active renewal. The construction management education account was previously kind of overlooked in e-payment. It was more of a little footnote. If we were going to put a step in here, let's expand it a little bit. There's a paragraph about it. We have an image that's going to be going on here with one of those big giant check pictures with lots of big numbers written on it. Once again, it's just, you know, a more clean. We have instructions in the headers. We have made most of these buttons and interfaces touch friendly. So in the future, when we do eventually get this to the online, that they can do it from their smartphones, they can do it from their tablets. It'll be much more, you know, one system instead of having to have 2 or 3 different systems for the same function. Just a standard credit card entry page, you know, with a couple borrowed elements from other items. Don't write down my credit card number. And so instead of making the individual tell me what kind of credit card number it is, we tell them what kind of credit card it is. It's another step of them not having to make a mistake. If they come in with a MasterCard, our default option was Visa. The number of people that got rejected and had to go through the process again by selecting the wrong card type. Options, we actually ran this through a workshop in testing. Big thanks to Wendy and Carol for letting us use one of her workshops as guinea pigs. We handed them types and said, go through our system, tell me what you think, tell me where you get stuck. This was one of them. They weren't sure what the CVV2 code was. So we gave them a nice picture, nice little text. Okay, That should tell me it's a bad format. Hit bad format. I'm going to take my email address out then. So with any web form, we do have our set of required fields. Click here. You have to have all these. We allow them to pull the address that we have in the database to automatically populate all the information. Saves them from typing. But we also have a little message here at the bottom that says this is the address of record. This is not how you change your address. If you need to change it, you need to get the correct form to properly change your address. One of the biggest improvements we made was on this page. We now track the licensee information and the payee information. Previously, we only really tracked the person who paid. So if we have a gal who comes in and she'll pay 3 HIS applications a day, 2 or 3 days a week, and all we know is it's a net. We don't know whose application it matches up to. It was rather difficult for cashiering in the front counter to sift through all the papers and figure out who was getting this payment, who had that payment. This one we actually have licensee information at the top and payment information at the bottom. If I had typed in my own address, it would actually populate the address in here. It would have phone numbers, and all that stuff was also on the receipts.
Why do you charge a convenience fee?
It's part of our contract. It's part of the contract with official payments.
So they're the ones that are charging you then?
That's correct. Our terms and conditions in a very similar box. Very, very, actually identical to the previous terms and conditions, only this doesn't have its own page. Okay, process is complete. My payment was accepted. This is a payment only. This does not guarantee the renewal. And this language we have up here, we got from Betsy. This is very concise. This is what she wants the contractors to see. You've only paid. If you turn around and walk out with your documents, not following the directions, now you're going to be delinquent. And so we spent a lot of time with the businesses making sure that the language is correct. That was extremely important, that we didn't have somebody go, but I paid, but you didn't turn in your documents. But I paid, well, that doesn't guarantee approval. So we made sure that we had a lot of language in this that, prevented the phone calls, prevented the problems. And I will bring up a sample copy of the receipt. This is the current, or the new receipt. It's a PDF. This is the same language as was on the other one. So when we hand them their document, their receipt, and they're going home and they're going, oh, okay, it's not a done deal. I still have other documents that I need to turn in. There's still more steps, more tracking information on the receipts. This is what our receipt used to look like. Very plain boxed, not very professional. And so if this person does walk out, we have a copy of this receipt. We have their phone number. We call them and say, hey, you left without your documents. Just much more clean and professional. These documents are actually going to be part of the documents in Iowa's. We barcoded them for the units, so that way there's less opportunity for transposing numbers, less mistakes. And are there any questions?
If the applicant, this looks great, if the applicant does not follow through in a certain period of time, 30 to 60 days, is this fee refundable?
No.
Good.
We do not.
Okay.
We do not refund fees.
Is that language in there?
No,
I
I
don't
didn't
know.
see it in there. I didn't see it in there, but.
I can look for the applicant one. This one is for the renewal. All the language is actually based on what kind of fee that they're paying. So if this was an applicant, a brand new applicant, what comes up on the screen is actually going to be based on original exam application. So it might be in there. I'll have to double check with Betsy. I'll have to look at the language of it. And if it doesn't, I'll work with her and we'll get something added to that.
I just want to say thanks for putting the construction education in there so clearly where they can, it's kind of hard just to say no. And since a lot of those contractors are hiring those graduates, so thank you.
Is that an optional fee?
It is an optional fee, and it took a while to get it onto the application. It's on the application, and we send a lot of information out to our association members asking them to do it. And as you may remember last year, we granted quite a bit of money to those programs, and it does make a difference. So including that in that renewal, including in the application, is greatly appreciated.
But they do have the option to opt out.
Well, if they're stingy.
No, I'm just saying.
It's voluntary. It's a voluntary.
It is totally voluntary. And it says voluntary on it, and it says voluntary on the application.
Correct. The actual field for them to put in dollars actually doesn't show up until they press yes, I want to donate. So if they press no, it just moves on to the next field. And so when they press yes, it actually expands the form a little bit more, gives them a field to type in dollars and then continue. And if they accidentally push yes, they can actually still say cancel donation and move on to the next step.
I think when they say no, could we have a little thing that says, "Are you sure?"
Thank you, that was great information. Okay. Budget update, Cindy Christensen.
You have in the packet our current expenditures to date as compared to last year. There really aren't any surprises. We still have 40% of the budget, and we still anticipate putting about $4 to $5 million into the next year's fund because we probably will not expend all of the money. Revenue is very stable, as you can see here. Penalty assessments are still up. On page 2, this is our revised final budget and adjustments. This is for your information. This is in the final budget bill. Our fund condition is on page 3. There again, you'll see for 2014-15, which is this year, we have a 4.5-month reserve. If we do roll over the extra $4 to $5 million that I was talking about earlier, that's another month. We have about a $60 million budget, so 1 month is $5 million. So if we keep rolling it forward, we should not have to go in and ask for a fee increase soon. As we were discussing earlier, the construction management education account is broke, so we've got to wait for that to come back up so that we can start giving grants on that. And the next 2 pages just give you a little snapshot of the past 4 years in terms of applications received, licenses, et cetera. So any questions on this? Okay.
So I might be doing this too basic, Cindy, but on your on the first page under your expenditure description, your budget's about 5.2, like you said, about 5.2, 5.3 million per month.
Right.
And based on the current spending, if you were spending all of that, you'd be about $36,834, or $36,662,000. So is the reserve, where do you feel like the reserve is just rolling from last year through?
No, the reserve would come at the end of the year. So instead, like when we come up at June 30th, you would see as the percent of budget remaining, we'd have about 5%. let's see, 1/12th?
Well.
My math isn't good right
No,
now.
I'm just going in terms of, February, March, April, May, June. You got 5 months at $5 million a month is 25 million. 26 million is what you have left. I'm just wondering where the reserve is coming from.
We don't expend all of the money.
Okay, so it'll roll through is what you're
Right,
saying?
yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just a question, Cindy, on the committee reports.
Your mic.
That one?
Your mic.
Okay, the committee report here.
Yes.
They're asking a question on the budget about some inconsistencies.
Mhm.
Have you kind of have an answer for them on that issue?
Yeah, we'll kind of take that out of order. The committee had asked why they found a different budgeted amounts as opposed to the amount we had reported. When we put the report together, it was based on our projections that we thought would be as of August. And then once the governor's budget came out, it had actually had some more money in there. So that was the discrepancy.
Any other questions? No.
You need a motion to approve? So moved? Oh, we don't need one?
Just information.
I thought you were, I was delegating a lot of power to you, Linda.
Strategic plan update. Cindy?
On the first 3 pages, you have, let's see, how many pages here? Well, it's the white pages of the strategic plan update. This is the status of the 2014-15 strategic plan that board members approved last year. I don't really see any surprises. A lot of our goals had to be, the target dates we had to move back just because of the Breeze plant, the status of Breeze. I don't know why I'm getting so tongue-tied. But, so that's kind of explains a lot of those. And most of the other items have been completed. As far as public affairs, they did have some delays because they were trying to hire a graphic designer and they still need to bring a new person on board. So unless there's any questions about the current strategic plan, could just move forward to our proposal for the 15-16. So I'll move ahead. On the 15-16 strategic plan update, staff was directed to come back to the board with what we felt were some good goals and objectives for this next year that we could accomplish. I directed our division chiefs to think big, so you will see some items on here that maybe they'll get accomplished this year, maybe it'll take 5-10 years to do. I think I'll just have each division chief go through their goals and objectives just real briefly. But what the process from here on is, well, these are just for your review today and just review them today. And then what we'll do is take the particular sections and send them back to committee so that you can have adequate time to review them if you want to add some, or if members of the public want to comment on them. That'll provide another forum for everybody to look at these new goals and objectives. And we should have those meetings in between now and the June board meeting. And hopefully, if everything is okay, we'll bring it to you in June for full approval. So we can just leave them like this, or if you want staff to do an update, maybe just review them right now. Just kind of take them back, review them, and then we can look them at the board meeting.
I think these are pretty clear and specific, so I think we're good.
Okay.
So are these in lieu of having a strategic planning session?
Yes, what was suggested to us last year at the strategic planning meeting was that we do a full strategic planning meeting every other year. And then in the year between, which this would be, we would just have staff go back to the goals and objectives that we had last year. Those that we didn't accomplish would roll forward to this, and then come up with new goals and objectives for board approval.
Now, do you think that, there's a lot of recommendations on what's going to be discussed at your hearing on Wednesday that could really result into some strategic plans or objectives that have to be done by the board? And plus, I think the board should kind of get to know what your vision is moving forward now that you're new the registrar. So do you think you want to hold that off for another year? Or do you think we should be thinking about it this year, because there are going to be recommendations made to the board as a result of your sessions coming up?
I think just, going through this before in the prior years, and like you said, in my vision, it's probably not much different than Steve's, other than, him and I had talked earlier, too, about, training staff, making sure that, there's a lot of us that may be retiring the next 5 to 10 years. We need to start training staff, getting a succession plan in place. So one of the things is, getting procedure manuals in place and licensing and enforcement, so the new staff kind of know what they do when they walk in, getting some training sessions established. So that's one of the things. But I think it's just going to all dovetail together. We'll have these goals and objectives, and if the legislature does throw something at us like fingerprinting, maybe that'll take a higher priority over the things that we had done, but we can always fold that into our strategic plan.
Anything else?
Yep.
Tentative 2015 board meeting schedule.
Did we
Cindy?
miss sunset?
No, that's this.
Oh, it's after 10?
After,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I'm so anxious.
You too, huh?
The next board meeting, June 18th and 19th, that will be the joint meeting with the Nevada Board. We'll start the afternoon of the 18th, do our general board business that afternoon, and then on the 19th, we'll meet with the Nevada Board and discuss issues in common. And then our next meeting will be August 31st. That's another Monday. That'll be held in San Diego. And the nice thing about that meeting is that will be held in conjunction with the National Association of NASCLA. I don't know what the rest of it, State Contractor Licensing Association. And so it'll give, the board members to have an opportunity to maybe sit through some of their sessions, meet other board members, other administrators, meet the executive staff of NASCLA, and see what type of issues they're dealing with.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask.
I'm assuming that we could probably do it after the meeting and perhaps the next day. I'll have to see. One of the things that's very difficult to get is funding for conferences. So I don't know if we'll be able to, get funding for the entire board to participate, but I am going to try and get funding for some of us to attend. But what I was anticipating is holding the board meeting in the morning, and then either probably invite some of the NASCLA executive staff to come in and talk about what they're doing, and then in the afternoon we could go and mix and meet with them.
Question through the chair.
Go ahead.
Can we set it up like a round table?
Sure, we could discuss so that you could have an open discussion with them.
Yeah, so have like or maybe agendize it as a 1-hour round table where we can have
Sure,
general
we can work on it.
discussion without, just kind of build that team a little bit better.
Yeah, we can set it up that way. Still be a public meeting, but
Right.
it'll be a good opportunity. And that's it, unless there's any questions from board members or the public.
Review, discussion, and possible action regarding potential revisions to proposed sunset review report. Cindy.
Laura Zuniga had emailed you a copy of the background paper that was distributed by the committee. These are additional issues or some of the same issues that they had put in their original sunset report. In all, there are 15 recommendations. But what I want to back up first, I want to just give you a brief overview of what the sunset process is and why they do it, and basically the process for the hearing. They do this every 4 years, and it's kind of an audit of the board just to see, are we meeting our performance measures, are we distributing customer satisfaction surveys, is our testing unit doing the occupational analyses every 5 to 7 years as they should be. But along with that, I've found over the years that this is very helpful to the board in getting legislation through. Several years ago, when there was a cap placed on bills, this was an avenue for the boards to get some legislation within that year that could be done pretty fast instead of having to wait for a year or two. So it is a helpful process as well. So there were 15 issues. Most of them the board has taken action on before. I'll just go over them very, very briefly. And then what we'll do right now, over the past, let's see, we got the issues Thursday? The final issues Thursday, Laura?
Yes.
So over the past few days and over the weekend, we've been working on finalizing this report. It's not due until 30 days from the receipt, right? Yes. So we'll be submitting it later, but on Wednesday, it'll be Dave Diaz, Dave Fote, and I will testify and give brief responses to the committee on that day. And then once the report's finalized, we'll provide a copy to all of you for your records. So let's see. The recommendations start on page 20. And the first issue has to do with lack of staffing with the board, mainly in its enforcement and licensing. They're concerned that we had several positions taken away over the years, and how is the board functioning? Are we keeping up with our license renewals, applications in a timely manner? And so our response to this is going to be, in some respects, with the recession, we were very fortunate because although we lost staff, we were able to maintain our workload because the volume of applications had dropped. And so that works in licensing. In enforcement, they are also keeping up with their workload, but we do need additional staff in two areas. The underground economy, where we have we're going to go forward with a public works budget change proposal. We tried going forward with that last year. It never made it anywhere. And then we also want to seek additional staff in SWIFT in our 3 remote areas, Mendocino, Santa Barbara, and what's the third one, Dave? Stanislaus. So we're going to request that they consider assisting us getting staff in those areas. And then also we have had a substantial rise in our citation workload. We're using temporary help right now to get that workload taken care of, and then we're redirecting staff. But if it turns out that we cannot maintain processing our citations timely and our hearings, then we will go forward with additional staff, but right now we're just watching that area. So that's what we're going to be telling the staff there.
What was the second one, Cindy? You said underground economy and SWIFT.
SWIFT. Well, it's underground economy. It comprises 2. Would be the public works and additional SWIFT, and then the second one would be just kind of a watch on our citations unit.
Thank you.
On issue number 2, they asked us about Breeze, and it's going to be a very simple answer. The recommendation was, should we provide the committee an update on Breeze and include whether the original cost projections can be sustained by the board with our current revenues? And I don't believe we ever received an original cost projection. We received it for the first few fiscal years, but not as it rolls forward. So we're just going to have to say, until this contract is resolved, we're just in a wait-and-see mode right now. Issue number 3 is pro rata. This has been going on for several years of trying to get an accounting of where our pro rata goes. We spend a significant amount of money on pro rata that's paid to the Department of Consumer Affairs. You see it's approximately $6 million. And so what they're asking us in their recommendation, is they want to know how the pro rata is based, how it's determined, how it's paid, and then there were other questions about do they duplicate services that we do, and could we obtain cost savings by doing them in-house. And right now, our understanding of the basis of how it's calculated is by the number of positions. There's a Senate Bill 1243 last year that had language that has directed the Department of Consumer Affairs to do an accounting and kind of, I guess, separate out as to how each division is paid. So there's really not much that we could report on that. As far as duplicating services or whether we could achieve cost savings, The services that we perform in-house are very program-specific to Contractors State Licensing Board. Our personnel services, business services, business services. It helps with our day-to-day operations that we have staff at our office that can prepare documents and send them forward to Department of Consumer Affairs. Department of Consumer Affairs has more expertise in certain areas that we do. We don't know all the specific little laws that could get us into trouble, so we send it to them for review and then they pass it on. So I kind of look at it as a partnership. So I think it works. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And then as far as we could achieve cost savings, we would still need to get additional staff to do those services, so I don't really see it, being able to do any cost savings. It's just probably just the way it's going to be, and it works. Our inconsistent budget numbers, issue 4, we talked about earlier, so I'm not going to go through that one. Our home improvement contract law, we had, this had been revised before. It's very complex, and what we want to do is just to simplify it. We may have to break up the law, but the contract is very complex with all the disclosures. The consumers don't understand it. And so we're hoping that maybe the Sunset Review Committee can help us in maybe changing the language to assist in simplifying this section of law.
Is that part of what we've already been doing in the legislative committee?
This is not going to the legislative committee, but it would probably, depending on the timing, if they choose to put some language through, they may do their own language. They may ask us for our input. But we will keep, any time that there's a statutory change, we will keep you apprised. But as you know, as the legislative cycle gets closer, we've got to move. So it may or may not be able to come back to committee. And let's see, the proof of licensure. This is the substantial compliance law, section 7031. And the board is very sensitive to how this impacts our members in industry. And so what we're suggesting is a couple of alternatives, that industry either take our language that we put in the prior bill as it was, where it would impact consumers and contractors, or narrow it to cases where a contractor versus contractor situation arises, where maybe a prime contractor gets into a disagreement with a subcontractor, so they start looking for all these little ways to determine if they were unlicensed for a few days. They're just more sophisticated type of consumers, and perhaps maybe that's a better way to go, just kind of take little baby steps. So that's what we're going to suggest on that one. Issue number 7 is retroactive fingerprinting. This would, let's see, I've got some notes here. This would really impact industry because they would have to fingerprint at the time of renewal. And if it's not done, soon enough, their license could become expired, triggering the 7031. So if it was implemented, we'd have to be very careful as to how we'd implement it. The second one is that it's very limited to the consumers, because the construction law is different than very many other laws. We don't license individuals, we license companies. And the individuals that enter consumers' homes are employees, they're not the contractor that's been fingerprinted. So we just don't believe that it's very effective in that way. And then probably the biggest thing is the cost. We're proposing to phase it in 3 renewal cycles, which is about 6 years. We would need about 7.5 employees in licensing and 4 employees in enforcement. And then we'd also need another cost to reimburse out-of-state licensee fingerprinting, and it would cost us about $7 million to implement this program over 6 years, and then, of course, ongoing costs for the enforcement staff. Issues 9 and 10 kind of go together. What we're suggesting is getting rid of the surety bond of, we're at 8 and 9, thank you. We're getting rid of the $2,500 capital requirement because number one, we don't verify it. Number two, even if we did verify and they had $2,500 in their account, they could go out tomorrow and buy a Porsche, if you can find one for $2,500. And then what it's suggesting instead is let's increase the surety bond amount $2,500. The committee had also asked us, well, what about your voluntary arbitration program? And so we looked into that and we said, yeah, maybe it might be a good idea to increase the amount of arbitration by the $2,500 as well. And then I'm going to let Dave take it from here on issue number 10. This was the biggest issue. It was kind of thrown at us last minute.
Yes, the concern or the question was, are our peace officers working or working with with ICE? And that would be the immigration agents. They're looking to see if someone's a documented immigrant. And we've looked into this, and I just want to clarify a couple things very quickly. One, the first is our peace officers are not used at our sting operations. We have authority that provides for our non-sworn enforcement reps to issue the notices to appear, and that's the way it's been done here for 20 years. We don't include the peace officers because they're not armed, and so we need armed security at our stings. We've looked to the DAs that we partner with to provide that security. Generally, they can provide one or two of their deputy DA investigators to back us up, but not three. And so the question is, where do we find the third peace officer? For some counties, they work closely with ICE agents, and they have suggested that an ICE agent be present at the sting. This morning, we went back and researched stings that have been conducted since 2003. And what we found is that ICE agents have been present a handful of times. In Butte County, I believe it was twice. In Kern County, had the most, 9 times. But I just want to make clear that it was rare. It was only when it was with the DA's recommendation. And on August the 20th, 2013, we put out a memo, I should say I put out a memo to all staff that they were no longer to participate in stings where ICE agents were present. So it stopped at that point. I became aware of it in August of 2013 through one of our supervisors who said that, with the politics and all the press that immigration was receiving, we may want to take a look at it. So I reached out to the department, to Mike Gomez specifically, and when I met with Mike, I believe Cindy was there with Steve Sands, he wasn't sure if we should be working or be present at stings with ICE agents, so he wanted to get with the governor's office to research it. He did that, he reported back. He said they recommend against it. Consequently, we put the memo out, we stopped participating with them at stings.
So we're really hoping that that doesn't turn into a big issue. We're trying to resolve it before the hearing as well, but that could become, hopefully it'll just go away. Issue number 11, that's sharing of the Social Security number, and we discussed that in the Legislative Committee. And so what we'll tell them is that we do have language drafted. Issue number 12, this is the misclassification. Again, that was taken care of in the enforcement report with those 4 alternatives. And then issue number 13, the enforcement priorities. I was just let David do that one. And then we've already discussed the infrastructure 14 and am I putting you on the spot, David? A little bit.
Priorities, yes. This has been something the board has looked at periodically over the years, and we're always looking to fine-tune our approach. One, taking a look at the source of our complaints, where we're receiving them, and what sources receive a higher priority, but also what type of investigations deserve the highest priority. The highest priority may well be that we receive a complaint from a district attorney regarding a predatory offender or someone that's targeting the elderly. A lower priority would be a contractor or illegal advertisements where we don't have consumer harm, or it could be some other type of law that's primarily enforced by somebody else, such as premium insurance fraud. but it is something that's ongoing, and in the packet, we have included a matrix that former board member Jim Miller helped us to put together.
Then, like I said, issue 14 we've already discussed. That's the excavation. And the last issue is arbitration. And that's the issue where when a consumer and a contractor go into arbitration and the consumer loses their case, we have had instances of the contractor who has hired an attorney to represent them during those arbitrations going back and suing the consumer to get those costs back. And what we're going to suggest is that that we be able to get some language in there to prevent that. It got stalled in some of the committees the last time we tried putting it. Well, it really didn't get stalled. They made suggestions to our program that just wouldn't work with our current arbitration contractor. So that is about it. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Good luck.
I just have a comment that I think there was 3 of us that are being going through the Senate Rules Committee, and we were interviewed, not together, individually, but this issue, well, when I was interviewed, there was about six staff members, 2 from the Rules Committee and 4 from the legislative offices. And this issue of fingerprinting was asked. And, you know, I felt a little uncomfortable my response, and I just told them that it was probably an issue that we need to discuss further at the board. So I mean, I really think that this is an issue that's not going to go away, and I think we're going to have to deal with it down the road. And one for strategic planning, I guess, too.
Ditto there on 7031.
Any other questions? Anybody from the public? Before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I'd like to thank the board members. Oh.
Doesn't staff need a motion to approve the recommendations for responses to the Sunset Review report?
So moved.
I don't think we really need it. I mean, they've pretty much discussed these in the past.
I guess because we think it's like a formal report in response, that typically that's what we do.
I mean, if you want to. You mean this response here, Christy? Or the answers that I was talking about?
The answers that you were talking about.
We don't have that in the formal document. We don't have it in writing.
Well, it's just, it was agendized as.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chairman, members, we're just responding to the agenda item, which is possible action or potential revisions. I presume if there's no potential revisions, then we don't need a motion, but I don't know if this is the potential.
I just thought it was possible. I mean, if there was something that had come out from us that we would need board direction or action on, I specifically tailored it so that they could take action on it. I mean, if they would like to.
To the chair, I make a motion we approve the report as submitted.
Second.
Okay, any?
Get me out of it.
How about as received?
But we didn't write this.
No, that's not our.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Senate, yes.
I withdraw my motion, sorry.
Okay, well, again, I'd like to thank all the board members. Thank you, staff. You guys, as usual, done an amazing job. And legal counsel, thank you for trying to keep us out of trouble. Motion to adjourn?
Get your gavel.
We're adjourned.